It's 7 o'clock. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Roberts and Ms. Franklin? Any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered?
Second.
Mr. Roberts and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon? Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to return student A to school?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Roberts and Ms. Parton, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to exempt application 1 from compulsory attendance due to religious exemption in Montgomery County Public Schools?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Roberts and Ms. Parton, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
No.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
5 in favor, 2 opposed.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to exempt application 2 from compulsory attendance due to religious exemption in Montgomery County Public Schools?
So moved. Second.
Dr. Guidry and Mr. Roberts, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
No.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
No.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
5 in favor, 2 opposed.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the personnel report as presented?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Roberts and Ms. Bond? Any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Pardon?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. Tonight, we have our student representatives Cyrus Underwood from Eastern Montgomery High School and Avi Gandhi from Christiansburg High School. Cyrus and Avi, would you please read our mission and belief statement?
Yes, we can. Beginning with our mission, MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity, and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences.
Beliefs. 1. All students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. 2. Schools are a safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. 3. Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. 4. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member. 5. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths. 6. All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. 7. Every child deserves an advocate. 8. Honoring the voices of our students and other stakeholders strengthens the school communities. 9. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. 10. Learning and teaching are collective effort that begin at birth and involve the entire community. 11. Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to a student's success.
Thank you so much, Cyrus and Avi. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Reed will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Speakers, when you come up to the podium, please state your name and the area of the county in which you live. And our first speaker tonight is Anna Vijayan.
Hi, I'm Anna Vijayan, and I live in District A, and I'm here tonight mainly to support the presentation of the Gifted Advisory Committee recommendations. But I thought I'd just talk to you very briefly about something else that's on my mind. So I was at the joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors last night, and I got the impression that they are open to funding some of the priorities that you have above and beyond your what we've been doing, but that they would be even more supportive if you did that master plan kind of thing that they're talking about. So I would encourage you all to get the ball rolling on that, or start thinking about how you want to do that, if you want to do that, and how you want to do that as soon as possible. And so we can, make strides forward. So just encourage you all to think about carrying through with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And seeing no other speakers, our next speaker is Chris Thomas.
Members of the board, sorry about that. I was heartened to hear that this board and the Board of Supervisors aspire to work together to arrive at some kind of mutually acceptable budget for our school system. Like many of you, I was outraged by the decision last year to yank funding after allocating your budget in response to a deprioritization of the SSO program. I guess regardless of your opinion on the appropriateness of armed men in our schools, the BOS's actions last year were unprofessional and possibly illegal under Virginia law. So I'm glad to see that hatchet buried. But the issue it prompted remains, or rather that prompted it remains. The simple truth is that the BOS does not see fully funding our schools as much of a priority, and they're loath to raise taxes to make that happen. So, like it or not, you are likely going to have to, as Todd King put it, set your priorities in order. Now, I get it. This board does not negotiate with itself. You don't want to play the game of, if they give us this amount of funds, we'll do these things, but you may very reasonably expect that your budget should be funded in full, but I think we also both know it's likely not going to be. this brings us to a historical blind spot for this board. In the past, when you've been forced into a budget discussion, the existing budget from the previous year has been presented as is, with detailed pricing only on the changes to that budget. That makes sense when you're pitching your budget to the BOS, but it doesn't when you're trying to decide what to keep and what to cut when you need to slash a few million in funding or spending. For example, how much does the football program at Blacksburg High School cost? I have literally no idea. I've combed through the board docs for the last several years, picked apart the budgets, run my own spreadsheets even, and I still have no way to know. I'm not picking on football here. Our schools consist of hundreds of discrete programs with fixed and marginal costs. What we do and what we offer at each and every one of our schools is a complex calculation, balancing available resources against community desires, against state-issued regulations and requirements. Someone's doing this math. Someone has that information. It's just not you or me. If the Board of Supervisors comes back to you with a budget that's, say, $2 million short of the one you requested, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. But the only decisions you'll be able to make are those with clear dollar values associated with them. Just because we spent money on something last year, or the year before that, or in 1993, doesn't mean that it should be out of consideration for a budget negotiation in 2026. But under the process you have right now, it is. Not on purpose, just it is. Legacy spending is effectively inviolate, not because we care more about it, but because we have no way to weigh it against new spending. And that's a problem. You need more granular accounting, both for budgets and for public transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And seeing no other signups for public address, we'll consider public address closed. We'll move on to our consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider those items approved. Our next item on the agenda is the financial summary report from February 2026. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report for February 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Robertson, Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin. Yes. Dr. Gitry,
Yes.
Ms. Pardon,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of the bills as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Robertson, Ms. Bond, any discussion? Ms. Reed, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond,
Yes.
Ms. Franklin,
Yes.
Dr. Gitry,
Yes.
Ms. Pardon,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Okay. Now we'll move into our business meeting, and our first item on the agenda is a report from the superintendent. Dr. Kelly Gimple will provide his report.
Yeah, thank you so much. We have several presentations tonight. Before I start, I do want to thank all the directors that are here tonight from our central office who were also there last night, just in support, just in case anybody from the board had any questions about anything. You guys show up night after night for all of our board meetings. I appreciate you being there at Board of Supervisors meetings and just always being ready and prepared. So thank you so much for your professionalism and just being available at the drop of a hat for me. We are going to start tonight with a presentation about our fuel tanks. And that's going to begin with Jordan Stump and also Eddie Walters. Jordan is our supervisor of purchasing.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Gimple, and hello. This will be a very short presentation. I don't want to go over everything that's on the slide, but we did just wrap up an RFP for the term contract for fuel and tank maintenance services. And we had already in place, we have our tanks at the locations across the district, 5 tanks in Hull, 4 10,000 gallon tanks, and 3 gallon tank at our operations center. We'll go to the next slide. This is basically what we want to hear. So we wrapped up our proposal on January 13th. We had 9 proposals submitted, and we had a committee that evaluated those proposals and negotiated with the top 3. And then we are ready to make our award. And all in all, we will have an estimated savings of about $250,000 with our awarded contract to our fuel provider. So if you have any questions, I know that's a lot of information on the slides. I'd be ready to answer any questions, and Eddie as well. Sure. If you have anything about the RFP process or our fuel tanks in general.
Board members, any questions? Ms. Franklin?
So I recall one of the tanks is at Price's Fork
Yes, ma'am.
and one's at the Operations Center. Where are the other?
We have 2 at the operations center. One is a diesel tank and one is a gasoline. And then there's one at Auburn, and there is one at Eastern Montgomery High School, and then the other one's at Price's Fork.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Board members, other questions? No. Thank you, Ms. Stump and Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next presentation, Catherine Davis, teacher at Blacksburg High School, and Eric Snow with New River Community College, along with students from MCPS, will present the MCPS Forensic Vape Project, analyzing and sharing about the dangers of vaping. And this is a presentation with no action expected. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Good evening, members of the board, Ms. Purcell, Dr. Gempel. It's so nice to be here. I've got a few of my forensics students with me, as well as Eric Snow from New River Community College, who is our partner in this project. So start with just what you're seeing on the screen, and that is the vape that we analyzed last year. The packaging was all bright and Fuji apple tangerine ice. Sounds tasty, right? And that's what these companies are doing to get our students hooked on them, to get youth using these products. They are packaging in bright colors and having all of these fruity flavors in order to attract younger users. Now, what you see below the dark green object, that's actually what's inside the vape. That brownish, viscous looking thing kind of reminded me of highlighters when we would take them out in the day. It was a spongy material that had disgusting, icky, sticky, how would you describe the smell? It was overpowering. I mean, you can see the looks on their faces. It was disgusting. So I was actually sitting right over there on October 1st of 2024 for student recognition. And this board had a few objectives that were stated during the course of that evening. The first was that you wanted more courses leading to careers in public service. And I was preparing to teach our first forensic course at Blacksburg High School at the time, and I said, check, we've got that. I've also put forward course proposals to hopefully in the future be able to offer the course as a dual enrolled option in collaboration with Professor Snow over at New River, and he and I have been working together over the past couple of years as we've been developing the course. We also then heard later in the meeting your presentation about the then trial of the vape detectors at Auburn High School. And this board said that you wanted more education for students about the dangers of vaping and that you wanted that vape education to be peer-led. And as I sat there and was actually taking my toxicology course through Oklahoma State, I said, check and check, I can do this. And the Vape project was born. So our project was to actually purchase the vape that you saw in the first slide, and we went over to New River last year in March with Professor Snow, and we actually ran the contents of the vape through the gas chromatograph mass spectrometer that they have, and there's a little image of the auto sampler there. And then we got graphs that looked kind of like that. And from those graphs, we also got lists of chemicals that looked like this. So there are some very long organic molecule names there that are far more terrifying than the things that we typically get worried about with foods. And then my students were provided with some research papers to cross-reference those chemicals with research papers to see if they had been found in vapes before. And then we began our process to create our infographics that were shared with students. And these were made to be alarming. They were a la the Subway bread has yoga mats in it commercials from years ago, where there happened to be a chemical that was in yoga mats as a preservative that also appeared in Subway bread. And so these are the infographics that our class created last year as a result of the project. And you can see we had all sorts of different looks that they had there. And I shared them in the stories on my class social media. And we also posted them in the school. They made a resurgence this fall for a door decorating contest that we did. And then we have been able to partner with VCU to become as a member school for the VCU confiscated vape study, which was actually part of the inspiration for our project, where Dr. Peace and Dr. Holt have been collecting vapes that are sent in from school districts all across the state to analyze exactly what is in them. And I've got just a poster there from the most recent set of data from spring of 2025. And you can see the popular brands, what parts of the state it's coming from. And one of the more alarming things for our students this year was not necessarily all of the disgusting, scary chemicals, but the fact that the vast majority of the vapes that were tested contain fecal matter. Not just in, but on them. And, so me and all of my maturity was like, well, yeah, the next time you see your friend pulling their vape out of their pocket, you can imagine them wrapping their lips around a big old thing of poo. And that was more alarming to them than the chemicals that were in it. But hey, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. So we actually, on the 6th, were able to go to VCU and visit with Dr. Peace and the members of the Peace Lab. And Auburn High School is offering forensics for the first time this semester as well. And so we were able to have Jen Sharpnott and her forensic students join us for the trip. We had some hands-on activities doing color testing. We got to work with the drunk driving goggles, and we got to learn about facial recognition and the processes there, and just get to be on the campus and talk with Dr. Peace and her graduate students about the Vape project and the forensic science department there. And one of the things that Dr. Peace said that really stood out is there are a lot of very bad things you don't want to put in your body. And the industry doesn't care. The industry wants to get you addicted. And that was in reference to the fact that there's legislation that is in effect in Virginia as of December that requires that any vapes sold in the state of Virginia are FDA approved. But FDA approval means that it's safe for you to consume in food. It does not mean that it's safe for you to inhale into your lungs. And in fact, there has been very little testing on that sort of damage. So what's next for us? Well, on Wednesday next week, we are actually going to be going over to New River with Professor Snow to do version 2.0 of the project. We are going to be gathering some input from students. We're not asking why they think we should analyze a particular type or flavor of vape, but just if they have any suggestions of what we should analyze. And we're hoping to be able to compare two different types of vape. They are stupidly expensive, and I don't like to spend too much money on buying vapes, but we'd like to do two different types, two different flavors, with or without ice or menthol. And then we're going to attempt to culture the vape liquid and swab the devices to see what we can get to happen with a microbiological analysis this year as well, similar to what Dr. Peace is doing. And then some references in case you want to see what's in the vapes and what have been found in the studies. These are two of Dr. Peace's more recent papers on it, and some of our graduate students who, graduates who are now students at other institutions who weren't able to join us this evening. And then my students would love to answer any questions you guys might have about our project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Davis. Board members, any questions? Who'd like to start? Ms. Parton?
So thank you. This has been a problem for a long time. It continues to be a problem. I like to see us being proactive toward this, which is what you guys are doing, and Dr. Snow, so thank you so much. You told me things tonight I didn't realize. I knew it was bad. I didn't realize exactly how bad. I knew it was just some really, really bad stuff. Have we thought, and I'm glad you're doing this because, you know, not just the students, but parents need to know this too. Have we thought about maybe showing this in school? Like making sure, because I don't know how many students watch the school board meeting, but if we could catch them in school to where they would have to sit and watch this, whether they kind of wanted to or not, just to kind of make them aware and educate them a little bit about this. It's just a thought that might help, because when they hear you say what you just said to us, they might be going, ooh, that doesn't maybe sound as good as.
Looking to create more like Instagram Reels style content this year with the project than just the infographics. But I don't want to be too presumptive, but some of my students are pretty amazing. They might just be willing to take the show on the road and speak with peers at other schools, especially if we can get support from our board reps when we're visiting their schools.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think everybody needs to know the information you shared tonight, so the more we can hopefully get that out there to our community and our students, I think the better. So thank you guys so much. Lots of good information.
Ms. Bond?
Thank you as well. As she kind of said everything that I kind of had in mind, but I agree, something maybe more of a fun, I don't think students are going to take this information and truly take it to heart, but something that just, you know, points to what you shared that's in it. I mean, that's not only bad, but gross. So, I'm glad I don't do it. But I do think that would be fantastic. You're talented students that could put something together that, as these guys can tell you, what would catch their attention. So we sure would appreciate it if you could do something like that and put it on the road.
Dr. Guitry?
Thank you so much. This is great. So you talked a little bit about the short-term objectives. Do you have longer-term objectives, and how can this impact the wider division? And then I also had a question. So we are one of the schools participating. What does that mean outside of the classroom? What does it mean to participate as a school?
So participating as a school, that's the easier question, is when our administration confiscates a vape from students, we put information that we know about the vape, like when they got it, how they got it, did a friend buy it for them? Did they buy it themselves? Did they get it from someone else? And then they go in a baggie and we send them to VCU. And VCU then does the analysis of the chemical contents of the vape and the microbiological assessment of it. And so all it was filling out a form, and Blacksburg High School was able to become part of the project. Long term, I would like to see this be part of the course each year, and also potentially have some of our research students work with Dr. Peace and her lab in doing some data analysis or potentially coming up with their own project to see about the impact of the materials, because she is internationally renowned for her work with this. And so we've got this amazing resource who's willing to work with our students, who isn't too far down the road. And then between the facilities at New River with Professor Snow, and then, you know, if we need more variety of analytical instrumentation potentially at Virginia Tech, then, you know, we could have our own branch of the study that they're doing, that our students are collaborating with her to get more information out there about what these things are doing to cells.
Great. So when they analyze the vape devices from PHS that we sent to them, does that information come back to us? And
It is anonymized, so we don't know, you know, of the study data that they put out on their posters or in their papers each year. We don't know which ones were from our students. And part of that is for legal reasons. We don't really want to know if the ones that we sent them were the ones that had marijuana in them or other substances.
yeah, and I asked that question not because I want to find out like what
Yeah.
student where the devices came from, but how does it benefit MCPS by participating beyond just kind of the educational experience? Like, is there information that comes back that could be useful to the division about the use of vapes?
As far as I know, it's just the general contribution to the research. And then, you know, having access to Dr. Peace to talk to us about it, and helping to see trends between our area of the state and the other areas of the state.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. This is great.
Dr. Roundtree, do you have any questions?
Sure. So, it's cool that y'all got to run a gas spectrometer. What other kinds of equipment did y'all learn about in the laboratory? And what was your favorite thing doing this?
So when we were in the lab with Professor Snow, we were able to use the GCMS that he had, and then we were also able to use the stereo microscope to look at some ballistics comparisons, and we were able to use the automated fingerprint device that they have that is what would be used by law enforcement to put prints into the system. As far as favorites, I'll let the kids say what their favorite part was.
Okay, I guess I will go first. I suppose my favorite would be the ballistics microscope. I suppose my favorite would be the ballistics microscope to analyze the different groups of the bullets and to tell which ones that, even though they're from the same gun, they could be from different ones and from the same line, but not the same thing.
Yeah, I think my favorite piece of equipment and like area of study was whenever we worked on fingerprints, and we went from like old school like pictures of fingerprints, identifying individual minutiae and comparing them between samples and collected data, but then also seeing like the automatic scanners that Ms. Davis mentioned that are like more present day, and seeing how that technology's evolved over time was really cool.
I don't have any questions, but you guys did a really impressive job. That was obviously a lot of work, put a lot of care into it. And for what it's worth, Camel cigarettes still pop into my head from time to time. And that probably is lost on both of you, but there was a cigarette manufacturer that got sued into oblivion for advertising that was marketed to children, and that's what I'm seeing here. I say it pops into my head because it's been 35 years since they've advertised, and it's still with me. It's nice to see you again, Mr. Snow. Thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
So I agree, this is great. So some of the information that in your information that you've shared with the students, what has been the reaction of students?
mean, I'll be honest. I was shocked by a lot of it, as Ms. Davis said with her really wonderful imagery there. But things like that, yeah. I'll agree that that's, like, even from my perspective, that's way more convincing than an infographic. So I think that the implementation of more short form content and things like that will better help get that out there. But I mean, yeah, I think a lot of it, like the word that comes to mind is shock with a lot of it, because it's just a little jarring to hear.
I suppose mine is also shock because I've already known that vapes were bad. I already know a few people that do vapes, but this project, when we did it last year, it kind of solidified that these things have to somehow be stopped. And I've already seen some of the marketings of how they do it, the advertisements, even though they list nicotine, they don't list the other stuff that follows. But I would say it's mostly shock, and the short form content would definitely help. And Miss Davis's way of describing it is one way to put it. Yeah.
Okay. So even though when the vapes are sent off to be analyzed and you don't get, specific to our district, are there brands that can be identified in that information? And do we have access to that information?
Absolutely. So you can see just on the poster from the spring collection there, Geek Bar was apparently the top brand that they were finding that apparently is the big one. And then I don't even know how you say the other one, Views. That is R.J. Reynolds, the cigarette manufacturer. So it is very much the same industry. And we can definitely kind of keep an eye on with what we are sending out, what sorts of numbers we're seeing in comparison to what the statewide data is. But, they, like the kids said, they were, shocked to see what was in it. When the vapes started out, their manufacturing information, it was like, oh, it's just water vapor. It's perfectly safe. It's harmless. You get the nicotine without all the bad stuff. And that's just very much not true. Dr. Peace called that the first lie, because they try to get you hooked thinking that it's perfectly safe. But then the things that they use, the nicotine, is actually a nicotine salt. It's not the same nicotine that we find in the tobacco leaves. And it's far more addictive and can be much more dangerous than what we find in the traditional, Camel type of products that were back in our day.
Because I think it would be very helpful if the information was posted in our schools for students to see this one, and this is what it is. And just make it real graphic. It's got poo in it, okay? So that students will pay attention to what's going on. This is the real world. They need to understand what the real world is doing to their bodies. Again, I just thank you all so much for doing this research and sharing that with us tonight.
Thank you.
Avi and Cyrus, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So do you guys hope to present this to high schools and middle schools as well?
Ultimately, I think that would be a really amazing thing. I need to grow my class just a little bit. We still have small enrollment because it is only the second time it's been offered. And, as intimidating as it is to stand before the school board and be live on YouTube, hi, Mom, it's a whole different thing to stand in an auditorium filled with the 1,200 students of Christiansburg High School that you don't even know and speak in front of them. But that is definitely something I would like for us to be able to do, perhaps partnering with the student councils at the respective schools to help get the word out.
Okay, and I also have a question about the FDA approval.
Mm-hmm.
So it's FDA approved because you can, according to them, you can breathe it, but you can't eat it, right?
You can eat it. They are food additives that have been FDA approved. And so I think it's 38 different devices that have been approved for sale legally in Virginia. But I'm pretty sure if I were to go into the vape shop down the street, I'm going to still see things for sale that are not some of those 38. offerings.
Okay. And like, about FDA approval, are there like cigarettes and on like that sort of stuff? Is that all FDA approved, or has there been like instances where there's materials that are not FDA approved for that?
I honestly don't know a whole lot about FDA approval on tobacco, like traditional smoked tobacco products.
Yeah.
But I could try to find out for you and send you an email.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have a couple of things. This is cool to see because, like, even in a school of 250 students, it's a huge problem that we have. You can walk around in the middle of class and there'll be countless people in the bathroom, but you could assume what they're doing. But if you guys get to travel and present these to students, you can remind your students that, like, our entire school is smaller than, like, a Blacksburg graduating class. So they have nothing to fear there. And
the hospitality is amazing. We were
Yeah.
there for the MAC tournament, and I love being down at East.
That's awesome. And another thing is, so y'all are talking about vapes here, which is a problem, but as tobaccoless nicotine pouches are becoming a bigger thing, such as like Zens or is Rogue the other brand, something cool y'all could potentially do there is also study like smoke or like nicotine pouches that are tobaccoless, just as a different course of study, because vapes are an issue, but I believe that also these are becoming a problem because students can do these in class and no one would really ever know that they're using these products. But thank you. It's awesome.
Thank you for letting me know about that. Give me something to see if I can manage to figure out how to get that through the mass spec.
Tobacco isn't FDA approved. So.
Well, Dr. Gimple, did you have a question? Sorry.
I don't have a question, but, you know, it would have been cool if you just presented a bunch of research to us, but no. You take your kids out to one of the leading practitioners in the nation and let them experiment and do chemical analysis. And then you're working with a professor nearby here. So I just want to applaud you for just going above and beyond and making sure our students are really exposed to real research and what that really looks like. So thank you for your efforts. That is an outstanding job. And I'm sure you guys really appreciate getting out of the building and going on a field trip to Richmond and getting able to, you know, I mean, what an incredible job. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Maybe just a little context for our audience. Vaping and vape confiscation is a huge discipline issue in our public schools. It's a massive public health issue that, to echo what Ms. Davis shared, is very understudied. So we really don't know what the health effects of people's lungs, esophagus, however those chemicals are interacting with the human body. And that's, you know, to again call back to your presentation, a marketing decision. And I think we are all very saddened when we see kind of case after case of student discipline issues related to this, because it blossomed so quickly after so many years of advocacy to try and reduce smoking. One thing I'll just share also, you know, every other local elected body in this county, the Board of Supervisors, and both towns could have enacted some legislation to limit the establishment of vape shops within a radius of public, private schools and daycares, and none of them have done that. And despite certainly being asked by me several times. So I know we talked a lot about you doing peer-to-peer research and hopefully kind of grossing out other kids enough to make them think twice before they pick it up. But I think some of the adults in our community could also be very educated by the information that you have to share. Thank you again for coming out on a weekday night, and thank you for giving your students such an amazing opportunity, Ms. Davis, to be part of this investigation.
Thank you. And thank you to Dr. Snow for helping make it possible.
Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Our next item on the agenda is our MCEA update. Katie Seidemann, our MCEA president, will present an update from the Montgomery County Education Association. This is information and no action is expected.
Good evening, Chair Purcell, Dr. Gimple, and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to present to you a report on behalf of the Montgomery County Education Association. First, I'd like to take another opportunity to thank and congratulate Dr. Gimple on his listening sessions held throughout the county. We have heard a lot of positive feedback from these sessions, and we're looking forward to seeing how the feedback collected is implemented to improve MCPS for the future. Secondly, I'd like to thank the board for your continued effort to mend bridges with the Board of Supervisors regarding the budget discussions. I know it can be difficult to go back and forth with budget priorities, but we appreciate your consistency in affirming that a fully funded school budget is what will make MCPS best for our students, our staff, and our community. Next, I'd like to give the board an update on our collective bargaining negotiation process. Our feedback survey was recently sent out to all MCPS certified staff to provide feedback regarding the top priorities for our upcoming renegotiations. And we'd like to thank Andrew Webb for his help in distributing that survey so efficiently. We had over 430 responses to our survey, giving us a substantial staff response, from which our collective bargaining committee will develop our negotiation topics and then officially present those to the MCEPS administration by the beginning of April. After that, negotiations will begin. We will continue to keep the board updated as we move along in the process. Next, the board may or may not be aware of some recent concerns coming from our school nurses. We have been working with our school nurses to address some of their concerns regarding communication with staff and parents, regarding specific parameters of care that are provided by the school nurse, specifically related to continuous monitoring of students throughout the day. More specifically, if you're familiar with CGMs, they're called continuous glucose monitors for students with diabetes. Particulars related to care plans and 504 plans, and communications between school nurses and students' physicians. Mr. Garrettson has been working with our nursing staff to collaborate on these issues, and they have already made a lot of positive progress. I wanted to bring this to your attention because there may be some requests or suggestions from this group in the future for changes to school board policies related to student medical care, with the goal of streamlining communication between school nurses, families, and their physicians, as well as limiting potential liability for MCPS. Lastly, I would like to address the transition day for kindergarten 6th and 9th grade students that was proposed at the last school board meeting and approved as part of the 26-27 school calendar. The MCEA has received many concerns regarding this proposal, specifically related to its approval. Our educators are very aware of the challenges faced by our transition grades at the start of each school year. Because we are experienced professionals, we have specifically developed strategies and procedures to manage these challenges that have been successful in helping our students ease that transition on the first day of school. As I said, our educators, specifically those who teach pre-K, kindergarten, 6th, and 9th grade students, are acutely aware of the culture shock that transitioning into a new school can present for these students. The concerns that we have received on this issue are not inherently opposed to the transition day. Truthfully, we are not opposed to the concept of this suggestion, and as educators, we can see the value in creating time and space for our students to become familiar and more comfortable with their new buildings and schedules apart from the other grade levels. Our main concern is that no one bothered to ask us. In fact, no one bothered to ask any stakeholder groups, but we all have a lot of questions about it. Will the schedule be the same as a regular day? What are the financial implications of running full bus routes for a much smaller population of students? What are the financial implications of our cafeteria staff, bus drivers, and paraprofessionals working an extra day? What about classes with mixed grade levels in secondary schools? What about families who have some children attending school that day, but others will not? What is the implication of childcare for that day? How are the inequities between kindergarten, 6th, and 9th grade teachers and those that don't teach those grade levels being addressed? Will the teachers who don't teach those grades have an extra workday compared to their colleagues? Or will they be given busy work to compensate for not having students that day? What if the benefits to the students for this day do not outweigh the complexity of the logistics or the inequities among staff? Again, the concept of the transition day is not the topic of concerns we've been receiving. And we realize that Dr. Gimple and Central Office will be ironing out many of these details to give us answers to those questions. It's the fact that this board approved that day with almost no discussion and no questions as to how it would affect stakeholders that is the most disappointing. In our introductory meeting with Dr. Gimple, he asked why the MCEA pushed to get collective bargaining passed in MCPS. This is why. Too many times, MCPS leadership has made decisions that would affect our lives and our work without even considering feedback from stakeholders. We got tired of waiting for someone to save us a seat at the table where decisions were being made, so we brought our own. We have been hopeful that since we have started to move past that pattern in the last few years, especially with our success in collective bargaining contracts, but this was an unfortunate step backwards. We hope that stakeholder feedback will be considered in the planning and implementation of this transition day so that we can continue the collaboration with MCPS leadership that we have been striving for. Thank you for your time this evening. What questions can I answer for you?
Board members, any questions? Ms. Franklin, Mr. Roberts, Dr. Roundtree, Dr. Gitry?
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much. And I agree with what the concern you have, but I want to actually address another concern that was raised yesterday. There were concerns about the cost of collective bargaining in these agreements, and we tried to address that as board members. But someone who has the seat at the table, I want to give you an opportunity to address the concern that this is costing the division money by having collective bargaining agreements.
That the argument that it is not costing, or
Well, that it is that. So I don't know if you were aware, but the board, we were asked by one of the board of supervisors about the cost of having these agreements, and we knew that there were some upfront costs, primarily, getting things off the ground with the lawyer, and there was a lot more back and forth. But I wanted to give you an opportunity, since you're talking about collective bargaining, to address that concern that there's an ongoing cost and it's costing the division money by investing in collective bargaining.
Gotcha, thank you. Yes, there were initial costs related to developing the resolution. There were more time spent with the lawyers, but on both sides. And then specifically the representative election, that was that fee was split equally between MCPS and the MCEA. Again, this happened over 3 years ago when our first contract was, when our resolution was developed, and then we were getting into our first contract. The cost at that point was minimal. I believe it was less than $5,000 total. And again, that was split 50-50 with MCPS and the MCEA. From then, there is no cost related to continuing the contract as far as logistics are concerned. The meetings are held during work hours. The work done by the MCEA is not paid. And any reference that is sent to the lawyers are on retainer, so they are already being paid. As far as the things that are in the contract that may cost money, we cannot, at this moment in time, negotiate anything that relates to benefits, salary or benefits. So we are not permitted, per our resolution, to negotiate anything related to staff salary or staff benefits. So the big ticket items, salary and benefits, we are not permitted to negotiate. So we actually have no bearing on whether those will cost money for collective bargaining or not, because we can't even approach them. As far as any other costs, we did discuss that there are increased costs as far as compensating teachers and staff for time that they are spent outside of work. So for instance, we have not enough staff to cover lunch duty in all of our buildings, and previously that was an unpaid duty, but now those staff who are losing either lunchtime or planning time are being compensated for the time that they're losing. So that does cost an additional amount. I will say that it is small, it is a stipend, and it is not a lot, but it is the compensation for the time that they would have lost from their planning or their lunchtime. I don't have those exact figures right now, but I could get them for those staff that are doing that lunch duty or any other similar type of duty and are now being compensated where they weren't before. And I will say it's not at every building, so there is that. Most of the costs related to, I guess, maintaining collective bargaining would be related to investing in the compensation of staff who were not being paid for work that they were doing outside of work hours before, and now they are. It also allows staff to take advantage of those opportunities where maybe they didn't want to work outside of work hours before because they weren't being compensated for that time, and now they have the opportunity to ask for that because of collective bargaining. Hopefully that answers.
That does, and I think it's appropriate to pay staff for the work that they're doing, and I'm really glad we have the collective bargaining agreements and hope to see them become more robust. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Parton?
So, Dr. Guitry, thank you for bringing that up. I do want to say that I do believe I know I've had community members as well as others, as well as the board, has asked to be informed on a more, I think it was quarterly, but I think it's been 3 years post-quarterly now. So just to let the community and the audience know that there will be something pertaining to the cost on that. And it'll be a little bit more showing exactly what's being spent and what it's for, I do believe. But I do want to make people aware that that is going to be something that will be presented to the public soon, and I do know that it's more than what is being talked about.
I'd be interested to see those figures because I'm not aware of them.
Well, and if I may, I believe some of the questions were brought up because I know when I did my research in the very beginning, everything I read online, everything, talked about the cost that was involved in having it. So that could be where some of that comes from. By doing research, that's one of the first things that comes up is the cost that's affiliated. So whether it be right or whether it be wrong, that is the information that's out there. So I'm anxious to see actually what we do have invested in it.
Okay, so I want to say the figures that I gave last night were the last figures that we saw in relationship to the initial startup of collective bargaining. So we were having a terrible time trying to fill positions. And in the last year or so, it seems that that has decreased when it comes to how many teachers we need at the beginning of school to get things going. So I would also like to see figures that show at what our fill rate was before collective bargaining and how that has changed since collective bargaining. You all know where I stand with collective bargaining. No secret whatsoever. I think it is what is right for employees and for employers. Not paying our teachers and staff and administrators for work that they're doing after hours is wrong. None of the rest of us expect to go to work and not be paid for work that we're obligated to do or asked to do beyond our regular work hours. That's just wrong, plain and simple. So if there's a cost to that, there's a cost to that. And quite frankly, it's about time it was being made right. Because if all of our teachers just walked away for the years and decades that they had not been getting paid for, where would we be? And now they're getting their just desserts by being paid for the work that they do. There's so many things that collective bargaining does to help support our community in MCPS, and it just really bothers me that we don't think they're worthy of being compensated for the work that they do. That really bothers me, because I tell you, when I went to work, I expected to be paid for every minute that I was on my job. And we still have folks who go above and beyond that don't even register that, yeah, I was here this much longer doing the work that I need to do for our students. So I will always be standing with our employees when it comes to collective bargaining. And if it costs us more, it costs us more. Because in the other side of it, it cost us also. So I'd be very interested to see those figures. And maybe we do a survey to see how the climate is now that we do have collective bargaining, as far as people feeling appreciated. And yeah, we messed up with that calendar thing. I'm sitting here and I'm going, oh, right. So thank you all for what you do.
I would also like to point out that none of our negotiation topics previously, as I stated, were not permitted to negotiate salary and benefits. None of our negotiation topics at our last negotiations involved any particular kinds of cost other than, again, being compensated for time spent working outside of our work hours. And I can tell you that our negotiation topics, even though they're not official at this point, also do not include any types of related cost other than staff being compensated for the work that they're doing outside of work hours, or conversely, we just finished our classified contract that was just ratified most recently, and there were stipulations in there about making sure that our classified staff had the correct and appropriate tools needed to do their job. Particularly our custodians recently got lots of new hats and scarves and coats, particularly with MCPS branding on them, so that they could do all of their work that they needed to do in the cold weather that we just had. That was a direct a direct result of collective bargaining. Yes, it probably costs to get those items needed, but I would argue that they need to have them to do their jobs appropriately. So again, I'm not saying it doesn't cost anything, but I am saying that it is mostly for compensation-related costs outside of anything else.
Right. And I agree. And I'm ashamed that that wasn't being provided already, because that conversation has happened throughout the years to make sure when our folks are out there in the cold weather that they're not freezing or having to go and buy extra just so they can do their jobs. That should be a part of it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Seidemann. To kind of follow what Ms. Franklin was saying, I'm also kind of curious, what is the cost of turnover? What is the cost of unfilled positions? Substitutes, searches, HR staff going to recruitment events, marketing materials, the hours spent in interviews and background checks, and then to have to do it over and over again because people aren't staying. That's not free. So there's costs all over the place. But if there aren't any other questions or comments, thank you so much for being with us here tonight.
Thank you all.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Gifted Advisory Committee Annual Report. Jennifer McGee, the GAC chairperson, will be presenting the Gifted Advisory Committee's annual recommendations, along with Anna Vijayan, GAC Vice Chairperson Helen Fatinos, Administrator of Gifted Programs, will be available for questions if needed. This is information only and no action is expected. Good evening, school board members, Chair Purcell, Dr. Gempel, and student representatives. I'm Jennifer McGee, Chairperson of the GAC, and with me this evening is Anna Vajayan, Vice Chair of the GAC, and Helen Fotinos, Administrator of the Gifted Program. The GAC scope of work for this year included a focus of the goals and objectives of the Gifted Plan in the areas of equitable identification and parent and community involvement. MCPS successfully drafted an updated local plan and submitted it to the VDOE. This plan was approved by the board on May 20th, 2025. This year, the GAC reviewed the implementation of the local plan for the gifted during the 2024-2025 school year. We reviewed and provided comments on the division's implementation of the goals and objectives of the gifted plan in the areas of Part 2, Objective A, Identification, and Part 2, Objective F, Parent and Community Involvement. The goals and objectives of the gifted plan in the area of equitable identification and parent and community involvement were fully implemented by the end of the 2024-2025 school year. The comments, recommendations, and feedback are captured in the attached document. The recommendations from the GAC include continuing and expanding the Discovery Program to reduce the opportunity gap for MCPS students. Additionally, the GAC recommends providing learning opportunities for community and family members in the form of newsletters, in-person and virtual seminars, and workshops. And finally, the GAC recommends creating a roadmap that details information about gifted service delivery and experiences at each grade level. This information would be included in every beginning and end-of-year family newsletter and at family onboarding sessions. Mrs. Fotinos, Mrs. Vajayan, and myself are available for any questions you may have. Board members, any questions? Ms. Bond, Ms. Parton, Dr. Guitry.
My thanks to the committee for all your work. So am I to assume that you're, over the next several years, going to be looking at different portions of the plan? Because I know that's one of the recommendations, is not to tackle the whole thing.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. One of the things that stood out to me, so there was a survey that you started in December, and you're still collecting data from that. I was like, that was several months ago. Can you explain a little bit more? Is it just it's open-ended, or what? Can you tell me a little bit more?
I'll let Mrs. Fotinos speak to the survey.
Yeah.
Yes, continuing to accept anyone who would like to participate. We have, I want to say, over 100 respondents at this time. And one of the takeaways is that starting this Tuesday, we'll be having a family book study. So we'll do that for 4 sessions, and that'll end with the author joining us. The book study is the Neurodiversity Playbook, so it's to support families with neurodiverse students. So I'm offering that once a month. Next Tuesday is the first date. You're very welcome to come at noon or at 6:30, and the book is available on Amazon. The staff and I are going to spend the summer building some seminars or family workshops as a response also to the survey. And then next fall, I will do another request for any interesting books, and we'll do another book study if this one goes well.
Okay. Terrific. I'm glad to hear that. I'm looking forward to the point when you start to deal with other elements that one of my concerns is about the middle school level, and this really is about the lower grades and the Discovery Program, which is great. I think that making that a robust process is really good. So I'm going to keep that at the forefront.
Can I just share one more?
Yes, I would love to hear a little more.
Celebration. We brought Dr. Emily Mofield in. She, in my opinion, is an expert on adding rigor to honors level courses. So she came on the first workday in January and did a 6-hour training with all of our 6th through 10th grade honors English teachers to find ways to layer in rigor and differentiation extension into our adopted curricula. So, we have to teach Sabbath, that is part of the VLA, but the strategies that we use could be amplified. And just some anecdotal evidence is that when I go into classrooms, I am seeing Dr. Mofield's strategies being implemented in our classrooms. Things like just choosing a side and having students have to argue why they chose side A or side B from the reading that is in the adopted curricula, having a Socratic seminar, having a debate. So I too share your concerns, and please know that I am working very hard to make our honors English courses be truly honors English courses. I think it's a lot easier to add rigor into math. We can, move our students up more quickly. English is more of is the word esoteric the right word there? It's harder to capture for students, but we are continuing to use data to drive the students that are placed in that class, and then continuing to build the capacity of our teachers. So again, some summer work that my staff and I will be doing is finding ways to make a document that would share those types of strategies with a teacher that maybe wasn't able to go to our training or was newly hired or newly an honors teacher, and layer that into that pacing guide so that they can easily access that information.
Okay, great. I want to ask another question, middle school level. While I have you, when we had the discussion at the last meeting about altering the schedule,
Yep.
One of the concerns I raised is about that use of IE time. Do you have any thoughts on? Because there's some people, I know, I've heard different things about this IE time. Some people are like, we need that time. Other people are like, it's a waste. I hear different things. But from your perspective, how important is that time? And do you want to give us any feedback on what the impact would be if that was removed for the gifted program, the middle school level in particular?
I believe that I believe all students need rigorous academic enrichment, engagement, right, in the classroom. But part of being a gifted student is also needing some special social-emotional learning. So I believe that needs to be somewhere in the day. Dr. Widener and I had a really good conversation, though, about is IE time the best time to use that? Because students use it for other reasons. They need to go to the library. They need to work on homework. They have to remember to go. So is it being implemented to the best of its ability right now? I don't think so. Are there other places in the schedule that my staff could support teachers with adding social emotional lessons, adding things that gifted students need? I believe so. There's the 6th grade digital technology and foundations and career exploration course. Could we find a way to collaborate during that course? Every kid is in that class every day, so we would have a captive audience. Is there a way to look at some of the other CTE classes and collaborate with them? So do I think getting rid of IE time will harm gifted students? No, as long as we're purposeful and thoughtful about finding other places to reach them during the school day.
Okay, good. And then the last question, this will be really quick. One of the things I also pointed out was the twice exceptional students and the identification process. Is that something that you looked at, that was discussed?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I looked really quickly and I didn't see anything about that in the GAC's review.
Sure. So that the review is specifically the goals that were outlined in the 2020 to 2025 plan. That was not written as a goal at that time. However, in the greater scheme of equitable identification, it's always in the back of our minds. To remind you about discovery, so that's every 1st grade classroom getting a lesson from a GRT every other week. So twice a month, the gifted resource teacher is pushing into every classroom during a time when every student is sitting in there. So we are intentional about not going in when students are getting pulled for reading services, not going in when students are getting pulled for ESL or for special ed services, because we want every student to experience that. And we want every teacher to see their student experiencing it. And so I think we're getting more, and again, this is anecdotal at this point, I think we're getting more classroom teachers noticing students for their exceptionalities and communicating that to us. For instance, I had a special ed teacher fill out our student referral on our website. Parents and community members can refer their students for additional screening. I had a special ed teacher call me and say, how can I notice the student? And I said, we have a form for that. here it is. And so now because of that, I'm going to go in and test that student specifically because of that special ed teacher noticing them. And I think that is in part due to better communication from our department. The book study that I did, so the book study we're doing with the families this spring, I did with all of faculty and staff that were interested in the fall. So just really intentionally educating folks about twice exceptionalities. And then again, the other part of my discovery, the goal of the discovery is to create this equal foundation for all students. So all students are exposed to analogical thinking, to critical thinking, to creative thinking, so that when we come into second grade and more screening is being done, that they're able to show us more of what they know, because you can't have analogical thinking if you've never been exposed to that, right? We can all have outside of the box thinking, but you don't know a quantitative analogy until someone has taught you that. That's not an inherent gift. So it is always on the edge of my mind, Dr. Guitry, not just because you like to bring it up, but I think you and I are both on the same page there that we are missing students. And so I am trying so hard to be very intentional in casting the widest net that I can and educate as many people as who will listen to me.
Great. I appreciate that. And I have no doubt that the Discovery Program and some of the broadening of the net is capturing more people. I also do wonder about the specific programming that helps the division identify, because it's great that you have special ed teachers that are coming to you and be like, hey, how can I be involved? It's different than employing particular programs that help in that process. And so that's one of the things I'm just curious about. Because I thought we did add at least some mention of twice exceptional
It's in
students.
a new plan. So just to remind you, this review is on last year's work. The new plan didn't start till 2025.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yep, that clarifies. Thank you. That's a good reminder. Again, thank you so much, and thank the committee for all your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Dr. Roundtree, do you have any questions?
No questions. Just thank y'all for all your work.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
No questions. I appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you very much for all the work.
Ms. Franklin?
So I have one. So what grade levels is the Discovery Program being used?
Currently, just first grade, except at CPS. We're piloting it in second grade at CPS this year. And as I'm meeting with principals, we're in the middle of our spring screening meetings, so I'm meeting with every principal, and I'm having intentional conversations with them about could they see that moving into their schedule in second grade. My pie in the sky goal would be that it would be K through 2, so that all K through 2 students were getting that intervention, for lack of a better word. But every building belongs to that principal, right? And so I want to respect their schedule and respect their teachers' time and respect their curricular time. So it's a partnership that we're trying to build.
So I appreciate you respecting those folks. But at the same time, my concern is that unless we're making time to do this work, then there are students who are not going to have the advantage of getting into gifted programs at an early age that will help them be able to be in the advanced programs once they hit high school.
Yeah, agreed. You do not have to have a gifted label to be in the advanced programs. Another piece of my work is trying really hard to notice those students. You can use students' PSAT data to recognize students that have potential for higher level courses, and so that's a data dig that I'm doing right now with Mr. Trussell to see. It's called AP Advantage. It's something from the AP College Board, and all of our juniors take that, but a lot of our sophomores also take it. So I'm working to see which students are not yet engaged in advanced coursework as a sophomore to encourage them to take those higher level classes in the high school. Another thing that I have worked on this year is helping or asking principals to allow GRTs into their PLC meetings. If we sit there and listen to the teachers talk about the struggles they're having, the concerns they're having, if we can hear them, then we can speak up and say, have you tried this strategy? Have you thought about that child in this way? And so another sort of sneaky back way that I'm trying to reach teachers with professional learning and get those strategies into their classroom that will help all students, but will really benefit our gifted students.
Okay. So I appreciate your strategies. But there should be no sneaky way that we're making sure that we're
Ms. Franklin, say it
servicing.
louder to the guy next to you.
There- There's no sneaky way that we should be making sure we're getting opportunities and exposure to all of our students at the earliest age possible, because that's what helps set them up for the future.
I 100% agree. I actually just presented on our Discovery program at the National Curriculum Networking Conference this past Thursday, and I can't tell you the amount of feedback I got from other districts saying, wow, that's amazing that you're doing that, and can you come teach us how to do that? And we also presented at the National Gifter Conference last year and are hoping to present again this coming year on our program. So things that MCPS are doing in our little rural Southwest Virginia are making news across the nation. So hopefully we will be able to continue this work, because I think it's really important.
Well, congratulations. I
thank you.
appreciate the hard work.
Thank you.
So our ratio for our minority students, is that out of line with what it should be?
We are getting better, and I will be
It
back
is.
in May with actual data. We haven't done our identification for 2025, or what year is it? 2026 yet. I am very hopeful that we will see movement in numbers to a place that you and I think are appropriate. So I'll be back in May to share that with you.
And that's with all of our minority students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Gimple?
I just want to thank you for your approach. I know you're turning over every rock you can, and you're examining every aspect of this, and I enjoy our conversations, and I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate it, and for all of your hard work. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next item in our agenda is the Special Education Annual Plan. Dr. Julie Ligon, Director of Special Education, and Melissa Perdue, Supervisor of Special Education, will present the MCPS Special Education Annual Plan update, and this is a presentation with no action expected. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Gimple, student representatives. Shout out to Helen. We participated in the book study, and it was great. We're going to present our annual plan tonight. I am new to this role, so in creating this PowerPoint, we did some informational slides just to give some context to the annual plan. We're going to talk about the purpose of the annual plan, the components, some funding, the funding for the IDEA, and then we'll talk a little bit about how the funds were spent this year and our projections for next school year.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Perdue, and I am one of the special education supervisors. So we just want to give you all an informational session on the annual plan and how things work. The annual plan for special education is the primary way school divisions apply for and receive federal funding, otherwise known as the IDEA funds. That funding is based on child count, on our December 1 child count. So the grant itself is broken up into two different sections. We have the largest part of the funding is specifically for students with disabilities ages 3 through 21. And then we have the preschool part, which is section 619. So we go through an application process, okay? It serves as our formal agreement with the Virginia Department of Ed to implement federal and state laws governing special education and related services. We are looking at how we're going to spend the money that they give us. We have to identify that. So there are some required components to the application process. One is the actual application itself. We report out on how we're going to spend sections 611 and 619. Then we also take a look at what we did previously and what we're going to do in the future with these funds. We look at maintenance of effort eligibility. We take a look at the statement of assurances, which is we are ensuring that we are legally compliant in what we're doing. And we will be doing SEAC. We will be presenting this to SEAC. We are inviting our community members. We invite homeschool, private school parents to come in and give us feedback on that. And once that is done, then we will be presenting the actual plan to the school board At that point, the superintendent will put his rubber stamp of approval on it, and then we will submit to the State Department in May. So let's talk just a second about how much funding there actually is. This is received through the IDEA. JLARC says that on average, the federal share is 11 to 15%. But let me emphasize that the IDEA has never been fully funded since its inception. So how do we make up the difference? We make up the difference in local and state funds. So let's take a look at Montgomery County. In regards to our annual plan, we are just talking about that 13%. That's what we have to identify, what we're going to spend, okay? That $2.5 million. The rest is made up with local and state funding.
You want to click that. So how did we spend funds this year? Our largest expenditure is human capital. 24 full-time special education teaching positions, 40 full and part-time paras for K-12 and postgraduate students, and then 3 designated preschool paraprofessionals. But we did do contracted services to some extent this year. Applied behavioral analysis, ABA, interpreting for students with hearing impairments, music therapy, occupational, physical, and speech therapy, and orientation and mobility services, O&M, for students who have visual impairments. We did purchase some instructional materials, teacher-requested items, primarily to work with students, certain populations, mostly adaptive materials. And then we do have 60-plus students who use augmentative communication devices, so we do spend money on assistive technology, iPads, communication apps, FM systems for amplification in classrooms for students with hearing impairments, and then manipulatives and sensory items. So that was this year. And then we project what we're going to do next year, and it pretty much looks the same. We are adding a teaching position, and we have filled our physical therapy position, so we actually do have a physical therapist. We will contract for a physical therapist assistant. For some of those services, we do have 2 open speech positions, which we have had applicants. I feel confident that we will fill those. We will continue to need to purchase iPads, apps, FM systems. We will work with our teachers to purchase items that they request to supplement their instruction. And we would like to do some professional training around certain instructional strategies for certain populations of students. That's our plan. Everything's there. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. Board members, any questions? Ms. Franklin?
So one of the questions, and it may not fit right here, but that I am hearing a lot, is parents not being able to navigate the special ed system to make sure that they're communicating and understanding the services that their child needs and that they're getting those services. So do you have a response to that?
I definitely don't like to hear that. Parents are our partners, and we do have an active parent resource center and a very active special education advisory committee, but I'd like to know more about that because I'd like to fix that if that's a problem for folks. We have one of the only funded parent resource centers in Southwest Virginia, and I supervised it for years, and I still work with Jessica Cumbo directly, and we do parent workshops monthly. And we have a listserv of a couple hundred folks on there. We partner with all the agencies, local agencies, social services. We try to get the word out. Anywhere kids are, we try to let people know that we have opportunities to work with parents around disability issues. But I would love to know more. any way we can help our parents, we want to do that. We have, our SEAC has grown. We have a waiting list of people that would like to be on our SEAC, and we have really good attendance. So it's certainly something we can bring up at that meeting when we meet with them on March 30th and try to brainstorm. Our PRC rep will be there
Okay,
to see how we can really better serve our parents.
that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Roberts?
So we have a recurring theme lately. It's unfilled positions. And I'll ask you to opine a little bit for us,
Okay.
because I think people need to start being made more aware. Are the unfilled positions, do you think, because they aren't paid enough, or is it because we simply lack those people in this area?
This board worked to increase the salary for speech therapists. At one point, I think, we had 8 open positions. We now have 2.
Okay.
Okay, so that the board voted to make the salary commensurate with what other divisions were paying. It was a game changer.
Okay. So some of that may still be, the personnel just isn't out there. It isn't maybe so much the money, it's speech
We
therapists just may
found
not
a
be
physical
available.
therapist, and that's a unicorn.
Okay. All right. Thank
A
you
lot
very
of
much.
these therapists can, it's a different type of work if they're working in hospitals, nursing homes, different. But you all upped the salary, and that was great, and that was a game changer for speech in particular.
I'm going to repeat that. You all upped the salary, and that was a game changer.
We don't have any open positions, I think, right now. We have one, maybe para position.
Right.
Somebody had to move. Our teaching positions look great. We have a cohort of paraprofessionals. I'm facilitating a course with VCU. We have a cohort of paraprofessionals going through registered behavior technician training. And my hope is to get this cohort through. We did a cohort a few years ago, and be less reliant on contracted ABA service. I think we need to build capacity as much as possible to serve our students and not rely on contracted, because I find that our employees are more invested. Nothing against contracted folks, but if we can have our own employees, we can do different kinds of training, and we can do things with our Parent Resource Center, and we can really build capacity in a different kind of way. Thank you.
Dr. Roundtree, any questions?
Just thank you for the presentation, and I'll reiterate what Board Member Roberts reiterated. We pay them more, and we fill the positions. I appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate all the work y'all do for our special ed students.
Thank you.
Dr. Guthrie?
Yes, thank you as well for the presentation. So I know with the gifted program, VDOE provides a template for the local plan. And it seems like with special education, that's not the case, that there's not a template, because so I looked at a couple other divisions to see, okay, what does the local plan actually look like? Because it would imply that there's the local plan, but it's not the same thing as just the 611, 619 application, even though there's the same, you have to have certain information from the local plan in those applications. Can you help to educate me what should be in the local plan? Because when I see this presentation, it has good information, but it doesn't seem necessarily like a plan, because when you talked about the human capital, if you were to go back to that slide for 25, 20, okay, and then proposed use of 611, 619 funds in 26, 27, right? That slide right there. That is how you're going to use that small slice of federal funding. That doesn't tell me what the local plan is, the total local plan for MCPS. When do we get that? What does that look like? Can you help me to understand the local
I
plan?
would gladly create that. I can tell you, there is a template for the annual plan. I'm learning too,
Okay.
okay? There's a template for the annual plan, and it has
Oh.
about 10 tabs, and the board will get that. You all have to approve that. We'll take it to SEAC on March 30th, and we'll put it up, the actual annual plan template, and we will walk through each tab. And then they'll give us any feedback. I'll create a cover letter, and then you all get that plan. You'll have the actual plan, the annual plan, and Dr. Gimple will get it, and you all have to approve it. And then in May, we send that on to the state. It's due May 8th.
Yes.
But that's just for that sliver, right? Like you said, it's just for a small sliver. It's that federal funding excess cost. There's a whole bunch of stuff we do.
Yeah.
And I talked to Dr. Widener, we've talked to our team, and Dr. Gimple, we would love an opportunity to do a presentation and talk about the things that we're doing. You know, there have been several questions about what is happening with our students with disabilities. What is happening in this inclusive model? Why are they making gains? What's going on with discipline? We'd like to speak to some of that. Might be a couple presentations. Might not be all in one, because there's some big topics there. There's a lot happening with our kids with disabilities, and a lot of really good things, and some things that we want to work on as a division. So,
Great. Now, when you say, just to clarify, there's a template, is the template the 611 and 619 application, or is there a separate template
It's the
for a
application.
plan?
The VDOE provides a specific application that we must use for the annual plan, and that is just for the federal funding alone. And that's what Dr. Ligon is referring to.
Okay, so there's not a
application template.
separate local plan that's all-encompassing that's
Not that
required?
Are you
We're
thinking
aware
of an advisory plan? Like
Well-
the gifted advisory plan?
Yeah, if there's something comparable to that.
Don't have that, no.
So the SEAC, what it's supposed to provide a report on is just those grant applications?
The SEAC?
Yeah, SEAC.
They will, from my understanding,
Yeah.
they do an annual report on their activities, their goals, they have set goals, and their input on the annual plan.
Okay, great, because I'm really looking forward to getting the report. So the reason I'm asking this question is that we're getting questions about funding. We're always getting questions about funding, but there's downward pressure on our budget, and providing these services is expensive. It's necessary. It's incumbent upon us to do that. So the more information that you are able to provide us and provide the public and for the Board of Supervisors, I think is really important. So one of the things that I noticed when I looked at a couple other divisions at their local plan is that they track data over multiple years and provide that in their local plan. So people have a better sense of how much this is actually costing. Because when I looked at the breakdown of funding, the local funding, if that's 11, we're talking about like 15% of our budget, of our overall budget. I mean, this is expensive. So like, what is the cost per pupil for educating a special ed student versus someone who doesn't require those services?
I can get you that number,
Yeah. So,
because that's really, it's a formula, and we can get you that number.
yeah, but some of that kind of data to help inform people to understand that the more students that require, because we have, about 15%, or I can't remember the exact number, students that require these services, that costs money. So it's a good chunk of our budget. So the more that you can provide us and educate the public, I think the better, because this is only going to become more costly over time with more students who need
And our
these
student
services.
count has gone up.
What's that again?
Our student count has increased, so.
Yeah, significantly some years. So I appreciate what you have here. I look forward to receiving more information.
All right, we'll gladly do that. Thank you.
Ms. Parton?
Thank you, ladies, so much for all the information. Sounds like you've got a great plan invested in what you're doing. You did bring up the fact that we are seeing an increase, and we were told that here recently. Quite a significant kind of increase. And I agree with Dr. Guitry. I do believe those numbers are going to continue to probably get higher. So I was wondering, incorporating into your plan, with that increase, what what kind of obstacles and what things are you guys looking at that might possibly be an issue that maybe you don't have now, but as those numbers start increasing, I don't know if there's some issues there that you see you might need to be thinking about having us address or letting us know. Aside from, it's very apparent we need to start lobbying our state more to get more funds for you guys, because, our local taxpayers are picking up the majority of this cost. And I wish we could do something on the federal side to make that better, but with not having that ability, we need to lean more on the state. So if you have any suggestions for that as well, I'm all about that too.
Thank you, Ms. Parton. Ms. Bond?
Thank you so much. I'm curious. I appreciate talking about paying more has made a big difference. I also, in speaking with just different aides and spec ed teachers and paraprofessionals, it's a bigger picture. It takes a special person. And sometimes it's not all about the money. It's finding that special person and hearing some of the things that students deal with and those people that are staff in those areas. And sometimes people want to be heard. And I think in that area, most definitely, I think our teachers and our aides sometimes have a rough day and want to be heard. What is your thought on, I know you had said something you would love to do a presentation, but for me, it's a presentation.
Right.
I personally think because we've had issues, because we've definitely gotten lots of data and things around what's happening in spec ed, what is your thoughts on like a roundtable discussion from all our schools, bringing aides, bringing paraprofessionals, and us, and hearing, okay, this is what happens on a day-to-day basis, and this is how we could address this better. Not so much about funding, not so much about budgetary needs, but about how can we change the plan about how we react to certain things. Is that a horrible idea? Is that a great idea? Is that do you think people would feel like they could speak freely?
I would hope so.
Okay.
I think it's always
Do you follow what
powerful
I'm-
when people have an opportunity to share how they feel about the work they're doing, especially when you're in a human service field.
Right.
I think it's important. I started in this county as a sub, then I was a special ed para, and I loved it and became a teacher.
Right.
So I do believe that the folks who do this work are doing it because they truly care. And I would like to, going forward, do more work with our paras and hear that voice. I think the first step was the onboarding. You all remember we started the onboarding process, and I think that's been really powerful. But no, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think anytime we can bring people together to have a conversation about the work we're doing, we're supporting a very special population.
Absolutely. And that's kind of why I go there.
I think it's critical to keep the lines of communication open so we can ensure we're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Gimple?
I'll just say that in going around to all of our schools and purposely going down into our special education classrooms, it's just absolutely incredible the work that our teachers are doing and our paras are doing. These are such compassionate and passionate people, and they really do work hard. It's just a challenging teaching assignment. And they embrace it and love it, and you can tell they love those kids, and they are just working as hard as they can to help them develop. And I just want to thank you also, Julie, for your work. I know that she is on the phone with other divisions, talking to other directors from across the state, and she's, you're after it.
I'm learning.
I know you are, and I appreciate it, and I hear it, and I get the feedback too of the folks you've contacted to just continue to serve as a great director for us. So I just thank you for your work. Thank you for this presentation.
It's a team for sure. Thank you. All right, good night.
Dr. Ligon, Ms. Purdue, thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay, moving on. The next item on our agenda is a capital plan review spanning 2016 to 2026. Dr. Mike Brown, Director of Facilities, will present a 10-year project history and a capital plan review for Montgomery County Public Schools. Dr. Brown and Angie Bland, Director of Finance, will be available for questions if needed. This is information and no action is expected. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown.
You're welcome. I'd like to, school board, Dr. Gempel, and student representatives, I'd like to present information tonight on the historical projects for 10 years. This is part one in a three-part presentation or series, so to speak. Part two, we will present information on our critical needs based on our facility study, and part three will conclude with an outline or a rough draft of our capital improvement plan. I am not going to go through all 28 slides of the cost, but I will be happy to answer any questions on those as well. I have done some calculations. A lot of things in here, or some things in here, could be put in the category of maintenance items. So I've broken those out and for each school, and what were projects and what were maintenance items, and I'd be happy to answer or provide information on that if you have a specific question on a school. If we go all the way to the end, it gives our breakout per strand and our total. We spent in the past 10 years, we spent $183 million, $112,350 on capital improvement projects and some maintenance items. And I'll take any questions you may have.
Board, Dr. Gempel, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to add some more context, this is a lot of information. But as we develop a capital plan, with myself being new and several other people in our central office being new, I wanted to get a starting point. And so without knowing and without being able to get my hands on a very comprehensive capital plan that led us up to this date, I asked Ms. Bland, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown to go back 10 years and just provide a list of all the different things that have been done in our schools up to this point, so that I have a great starting point when we start to develop the next stage. We are waiting for a comprehensive list of dire needs based on our facility study. The facility study is about 900 pages. To put that in some semblance of order, we've asked for a report on those things that are failing, that are imminent right now, that are going to need to be repaired in the next year, and those things that have outlived their life, all right, their expectancy of operation. Once we have that, we can start to develop this plan. It's going to take a little bit because we have a lot of work to go through, but the next section and the next presentation you'll receive on this will be those critical needs. After that, you'll get more of our long-range plan. And it's going to take a little while to put all of that information on every single one of our schools into a CIP, particularly when we're really starting from scratch and really beginning with this data right here. So just wanted to provide that perspective.
Any board members want to start with questions? Ms. Bond?
I just had a question. I know I guess it was last year, I had raised the question about Christiansburg's baseball field, and I understand some of the other baseball fields in the county also need work, but I'm not always there to see those. And I noticed in 2025, the baseball field ballast and light replacement, but there's still a lot of lights out. How do we get back on schedule for whatever field it may be that needs lights? Because I do think that's important. And I'm just using that one for an example because I just happened to have been up there and saw that. But whatever high school we've got or middle school that needs lights, I think that's, you know, is that like a reoccurring thing that we take a look at, or how do we do that?
It is not at the moment, but we can look at that and address any lights that are out. It's all, we'll be happy to look at that. It's also dependent on what type of lights they might be. If they're the metal halide type lights, they're hard to find. If they're the LED lights, they're more available. But
Right.
we'll be happy to look into that and try to get those replaced as soon as possible.
Right, just with all the softball and baseball seasons coming up, then, thank you.
Ms. Parton?
Thank you for all the information. It's so neat to see all of this listed out with the price and go back to see and remember what's been done and what we've done and what we need to look at. So thank you. I know that was a lot of work getting that together, but other than that, I don't have any more questions at this time. Thank you.
Dr. Guitry?
Yeah, thank you as well for pulling this information together. Just one question I have is, so like for Blacksburg High School, it was like over $900,000 to put in that synthetic turf. Was that all? Was any of that private funds, or was this? Did this all come through county funds? Like these projects, was that a combination of private as well as public funds for some of these? I just have a foggy memory of something in the back of my head, and I don't want to make assumptions.
Good question. You have a good memory, actually, regarding that. So everything listed on this report is just with school board funds for schools. So I think there was some additional work that was done on the field. There were some upgrades and things made, but those were with some donations made to the school to help support that. But everything that you see on this list is just specifically capital and school board funding.
Okay, great. So, last year we got I know that there's been work done on a capital plan. So we even had architectural drawings and an evaluation of the critical needs of the building. And so I think that the public will have questions if we're starting from scratch. Be like, because we paid an architect to come up with those drawings, and there was some assessment. So whatever we do from this point, I want to make sure that we take advantage of the work that was done and incorporate it in the CIP that does come before the board. Because if that's all just shelved and there's no explanation, I'm quite confident that we're going to get some pushback on that. So, is that part of the evaluation? Are you starting really strictly from scratch and just basically putting on the shelving what was presented before, the work that was done before?
On the capital improvement plan, we're starting from scratch. I'm not aware of the work that was done before. Was that before I came on board in July?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, there was an assessment of all of our buildings and a prioritization of the buildings, and there were I think was it 5 buildings that were identified as in red as needing, and so we got a spreadsheet and it had HVAC systems and went through all the elements in a building and identified which ones were critical needs, and based on that, the Superintendent Bragan worked with an architect to actually come up with preliminary drawings, and so there's definitely history there.
The information we have also has that in there, the critical needs, the red areas, so to speak, as well. That was part of this latest facility study. So this is the most up-to-date information we have on all of our systems.
Okay, so you might want to ask around and look at and pull some of that data in as well.
Dr. Guitry, that dated from 2013. It was very old document that we were working from, and that's why the Board of Supervisors gave us money to do this study, because we were working on old data. And I don't know about the allocation to the architect, but he is on, that's who we're contracted with. So there wasn't really the data to merit the schematics that we got, like the process.
I'm not saying that we should revive those drawings, but there are community members who ask questions about the funding for those drawings. And so that is on people's radar. I'm not suggesting at all that we revive that, but just be mindful of that work that was done. And my recollection, it was that there was some updating of that information. It wasn't all 10 years old. I could be incorrect on that. So it's just, I want to just be mindful. I'm glad that this work is being done, and I'm confident that we'll have a great CIP moving forward, but I just wanted to raise that issue. Is that okay?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, so the past is prelude, right? So I really appreciate this work. Getting to see what was done in the past over the last decade is very informative. I mean, just the $27,000 worth of curtain replacements on one of the schools. The replacing things on a school scale takes real money, and we have to plan for it. We also have to plan for the replacement of those 5 buildings that Dr. Dietrich, or renovations of those 5 buildings that Dr. Dietrich was talking about. But yeah, this is an excellent start. I look forward to the next 2 presentations. Thank you.
Mr. Roberts?
Thanks.
Ms. Franklin?
Thanks. But also, I thank you for putting all this together. It's been long overdue. We've been asking for this kind of information for several years now. And with this study, the 5 buildings that were identified, which, in my opinion, there wasn't a good study done throughout the whole county to make sure that everything was being taken into consideration. Not saying it's not needed. I'm just saying this study will go on to more in depth as to what is actually going on in all of our buildings. Short of saying that was kind of in my opinion, a hot mess that was put together because it did not go into a study of this depth to show us what was going on with those buildings and the rest of the buildings in Montgomery County. So I appreciate this very much.
Dr. Gimple?
Yeah, and certainly as we move forward, starting with this report right here, now that the board has seen this, you all have weighed in. This will be on our website. You know, we want this to be very outward facing, the entire process. We've talked a little bit about forming some committees where we pull some folks in from outside our division to help us to develop this plan. It's not going to be just something that's done in a vacuum. I want it to be as comprehensive and clear and, like I said, outward facing as possible so that the public knows exactly the conditions of our buildings. The Board of Supervisors understands exactly the conditions of our buildings and why we're going to be asking for the things that we're going to need in order to keep these buildings operable, safe, and really in top condition for our students and staff. I appreciate, Ms. Bland, the work you did. I know that you were ill on some of these days, and I'm calling you, and you're answering the phone at home while you're in bed and still working on your computer, and I appreciate that. And Dr. Brown, I appreciate you also pulling this together really on short order and doing such a comprehensive job and making this available for everybody. So thank you. I know there's a lot of work to be done going forward, and I'm excited for it, and I know you two are as well.
Sorry, Mike. Just a quick question, and only because I was just asked about this again recently from the gentleman that came and public spoke about it on the school signs for Eastern Montgomery Elementary and Eastern Montgomery High School. One was the Eastern Montgomery High School sign wasn't facing a way that let people coming down the road know or be able to see what was going on. And he asked, and I have been asked several times to see what the update on that was, because I know that was presented a while back. And I don't think it was very high on our list due to it not being necessarily what I would call a need. But I just was going to see if we were still looking at that or if it was even still feasible, because I think at one time with Eastern Montgomery Elementary, something about moving it closer to the road, but I think somebody was supposed to look into an easement or something if that sign could even be moved. So I just wondered if we had even looked into any of those two items at this point.
Yes, the preliminary information I have on that is we have to do more research into the VDOT
Okay.
right away and easement.
Okay.
So I probably need to reach out to VDOT and see where that actually goes to and where we could actually move the sign to.
Okay. And I thought there may have been a problem because initially of where they were put when the schools were built. So I don't know if any of that could have changed, but that may have been why the placement of the sign was put where it was. But I think they were saying they would like to try to see if they could have, because sometimes, I think it was when you pass the elementary school, you don't realize you've passed it until you go past it and you don't see the sign till you pass it. And then with the high school, the sign, you see the sign, but the sign is turned in a way that you don't, when you're passing it, you can't really see it or read anything that's on it.
My speculation on the elementary sign is it is placed in a manner for the parents who turn in off of 460. They will see it as a turn off. It's
Right.
not really placed for out near the road for the average pedestrian who goes by.
Right.
The one, the high school sign, I would speculate it was placed there because of just the nature of where it's at it's on a hill, I do believe. But I can look into that more. I can get with VDOT and do a little bit more research and see what's possible or what we can do.
I appreciate that. And I'm sorry I didn't ask that with my question before, but I had just recently gotten another comment made on that for an update. So I thought while I had you, I'd ask you, so I wouldn't have to bother you again. Thank you.
Board members, other questions? Dr. Brown and Ms. Bland, thank you so much. To echo the statements of others, I know that this was a real bear to put together. Dr. Brown, I hope it gives you kind of like a nice foundation to build from as being new in your position to kind of know better where everything is. Maybe trying to justify how we're asking you to use your time. I also know that the report that you've gotten from the engineering firm is substantial. So I think the strategy to kind of build our knowledge along is I'm also excited to learn more and to have us have a real CIP so that we can apply for competitive grants, which we have not been able to do because we didn't have the right kind of plan. So
It did give me a historical perspective on our projects, but I'd also like to share credit with Angie Bland, who pulled all of this financial data for me, and I just simply put it in the presentation form. So I give credit to Ms. Bland for a lot of hard work on that.
Ms. Bland, I think we have really run you ragged in 2026 from meeting one, actually from the holidays. And I don't know how we're going to repay you.
It's all for the students, so I enjoy doing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
And for a reference, when you talk about the depth of this study, there are binders that are literally this thick, that they are working through. Did you say four? Four of them this thick that they are working through to put together multiple presentations for us to get a comprehensive understanding of where we're at in the district and how we can move forward. So I can't tell you how excited I am about this because it is so long overdue.
Thank you so much, Ms. Franklin. Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. We have our staffing update. Dr. Tom Brewster, Acting Director of Human Resources, will present an MCPS staffing update. This is information only and no action is expected. Thank you, Dr. Brewster.
Thank you, Chair Purcell, members of the board, Dr. Gemple. I'd like to provide you with the staffing update this evening. And first of all, one of the most important things that we do this time of year is it is hiring season. We're in the process of hiring teachers and staff members for next year. We had over 100 participants in our job fair despite having to postpone due to weather. We were able to survey 85 of those. We got some really good feedback, not only on our job fair, but we were also able to receive feedback from these applicants about what they're looking for in a school division and what would retain them and keep them employed within a school division. So we look forward to sharing that information at a later date. But to be able to have them all in one place and be able to get that kind of a response back in terms of a survey was rather significant. We've also been to Virginia State University this year, Winston-Salem University, Radford University, and we'll finish out this week at Longwood University. And these are all job fairs that we attend that are closely associated with colleges and universities in our region. First of all, if you look at our current vacancies, we're looking in for specific areas, that is administration, secondary certified, special education certified, and classified. Those are the categories by which we have vacancies at this particular time. Assistant principal, we actually have 2 candidates recommended. 2 candidates were approved tonight. We have 3 openings, so that means that we have filled 2 out of 3 of our openings, one at Margaret Beeks and the other at Gilbert Linkus. We have also have candidates approved. We have an American Sign Language teacher who's been approved and has already started on March 10th. We have a CTE Health and Medical Science teacher that has been approved who will start April 10th. And we have a 504 coordinator. The candidate has approved with that start date to be determined, and that is at Blacksburg High School. In our current special education positions, specially designed instructional coach, we have 3 positions. We are accepting applications on 2 of those positions, and we have 1 candidate approved with the start date to be determined. We have 3 special education teaching positions open, which we are accepting applications, and we have a 1.5 position of speech pathologist, which we are accepting also applications. In our classified operation vacancies, one of the important things to note is we continue to have great success with our custodial hirings. Right now, we have 5 positions opened, and if I'm not mistaken, we have filled 2 of those this evening. So we have 3 positions open that we are accepting applications for. All of our positions in grounds maintenance have been filled, and our HVAC positions have also been filled. We also are working to fill a position in transportation with one of our vehicle fleet technician positions. We are also accepting applications for bus drivers, and we hope to have candidates to recommend to the board next time in that area of transportation, and most importantly, bus drivers. So if we look at our current classified instructional vacancies, we currently have 3 paraprofessional positions open. 2 are in special education and 1 in early literacy, as well as 2 lunch recess aid positions that are open, and we are currently accepting applications for those and trying to fill those positions. We also have our diversity hiring. We continue to review our year-to-date diversity hiring data. Currently, we're at 7% for certified and 16% for classified positions, slightly below last year's 8% for certified, but above last year's average of 15% for classified. As far as our substitute information, we have 423 active substitutes. That's up from 380 in October. So we continue to build our capacity among our substitute population. For February, our fill rates are 93% for teachers and 55% for paraprofessionals. We are also tracking both teacher and paraprofessional rates by community and by school. What you see there is the data for the community, but we are also looking and drilling down to the school level, and we'll explain why we're doing that here in just a few moments. If you look at our teacher fill rates and para-fill rates, you'll see the past few months, those have been elevated. We are starting, particularly with our para fill rates, we are above average and have been above average since December. We are starting to hire, and we're still in the process of hiring our designated sub, which is to be used by principals at their discretion for paraprofessionals. So we are seeing increases, and if we look at the school where we filled those vacancies, we are seeing fill rates increase as a result of adding that position. The challenge is ensuring that we have those added positions filled at every school, and that's something that we're working on now. So we are seeing
our fill rates for both paraprofessionals and for teachers above the trend line and the average for this school year. As far as our chart, this chart provides a comparison to last year up until this point, and you can see that our teacher and paraprofessional fill rates are higher than they were or than last year's average. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, but we have had several reasons, several strategies that we've implemented in order to make that happen. And these are some of the strategies that we've done. First of all, we've added, and the board has allowed us to add a designated substitute at all schools, which has really helped and assisted us. But the thing that's most important is we continue to fill those positions. That's critical. We have also started hiring paras earlier in the year, and if you'll see on the right, pardon the pun there, Parapalooza is our paraprofessional job, annual job fair that we do each year. Last year we started doing those early. We started doing those in May. This year we're starting in April. By building a cadre of paraprofessionals early on, before the summer hits, we can place those in the fall when we really need them, and we actually increase our capacity by hiring early and getting those individuals hired, trained, onboarded, and ready to start in the fall. So that was something that's been very successful for us, and we want to continue to do that this year. And we also would like to extend that even beyond paraprofessionals and look at filling our designated substitutes for next year in the same manner. Finally, we have reduced the overall number of vacancies among schools, particularly among our para population, and certainly a shout out to Dr. Ligon and special education team who are hiring paraprofessionals and ensuring not only that we hire them, but they stay. We've had fewer leave this year than we have in the past, and certainly that has to do with the training and onboarding that's taking place in the special education department. This chart is a little wobbly, but what I think the most important thing it emphasizes the fill rate for paraprofessionals among the community. And as you can see, Auburn has certainly a significantly higher fill rate than the other communities. But what's most important to note is sometimes paraprofessional substitute shortages are concentrated in specific schools. They're not necessarily across the strand. For example, let's take an elementary school may have a significantly low fill rate, while the middle school and high school has a significantly high fill rate, with one elementary bringing the entire strand or community down. So I think it's important as we move forward that we look at individual schools and we look at what they need, the resources they need. It may be that they need an extra designated sub. It may mean that they need to focus in on the hiring process and ensuring that we're staffed and well-staffed, or it could be something as a building level issue with absenteeism or paraprofessionals being out of school. So that's an example of where we are. You can see that East Montgomery is trending lower and Blacksburg and Christiansburg are trending somewhere in the middle. But the most important thing to take from this is that even though you see East Montgomery trending lower than the other strands, it may be as a result of one school as opposed to all three schools. And I think that's something to keep in mind. So here are some of our recommendations moving forward. First of all, we want to expand on our school community-based recruitment. We actually want to go, and I can recall that, living, in an area growing up, we had our own cadre of substitutes that would come in. They were local. For example, substitutes who substitute for us in Blacksburg usually stay in Blacksburg and are loyal and substitute in Blacksburg. The same with Christiansburg, same with Auburn, same with East Montgomery. So it's important that we get to these communities and we try to engage the community in serving as a substitute, because there's nothing greater for our students that if a teacher or paraprofessional is going to be out, that we have a caring adult in that classroom attending to those individuals and those students. Encourage our school to develop preferred substitute list. that simply means knowing who's substituting for you, who's there every day, who you can count on, and who you can depend on. And I think that if you ask any principal, they could tell you who the top subs are in the building. They can tell you who they are. They're dedicated. They're known throughout the school. They're known throughout the community. Their longevity, they've been there a while. And so certainly we need to find a way to recognize them, but also to recognize when we have outstanding substitutes that are giving us lots of service throughout the year. Continue monthly fill rate trends across schools and communities to identify areas where additional recruitment efforts may need to be made, and doing that in real time. For example, if a school's struggling and we find out a school's struggling, a lot of times we find that out by the principal picking up the phone and calling us. But we need to ensure, particularly as an HR department, but as a school system, that we're providing the administration with the resources they need to fill both the teaching positions and the para positions, sub positions. Finally, and I think this is certainly significant, recognize and retain high-performing substitutes. We need to find a way that either at the school level or in some way we can recognize our substitutes who are working in our buildings. And that can be from, from the angle of, just providing them with some attention, on social media, some division-wide recognition and exposure, or even doing something nice for them at the school level. We need to find some way to recognize and reward our substitute teachers who are doing an exemplary job for us. And finally, this is the goal, action, measure of success, and timeline chart by which we're going to be doing a lot of these things for the future. Now, one of the things about college partnerships is you heard Dr. Ligon just a few moments ago talk about their partnership with VCU. Dr. Ligon has also gone with me virtually to New River to try to recruit students from the early childhood class to be paraprofessionals. But I think we really, when it comes to paraprofessionals and teachers, college partnerships are paramount and very critical. Continue with our building designated subs. Earlier hiring timelines and substitute recognition. Those are all areas where we feel like that we can get some gains, we can get some targeted gains in our schools, and ideally we'd like to see our paraprofessional and teacher sub-fill rates increase well above 90% and well above 60% on average for next year. And at this time, I'll see if the board has any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brewster. Board, any questions? Ms. Franklin?
So one of the things that we did to help with fill rate for our substitutes was our dedicated subs.
Yes.
So why can't we use some of that same strategy with our paraprofessionals?
We have added a designated sub primarily for paraprofessionals in each building. That was one of the things that we did back in December, the school system did back in December. We're in the process of hiring. We're fully staffed. We have no vacancies as far as our designated subs, but we're still continuing to hire our designated subs designed specifically for our paraprofessional population. I can tell you that we've hired, if I'm not mistaken, we've hired a significant number of those designated pair subs. However, we still have vacancies out in the building that we need to fill, and we're working on there now. But I can look at the data, and schools with vacancies, the para fill rate increases from 53% to 58% just by having that extra person in there.
Great.
So that's very important that we have dedicated and trained individuals who can go into a classroom and serve as a para.
As far as our RIHIP employees, I remember us having the conversation, but I don't remember the reasoning behind raising their days to 45 days, their qualifying days. I guess that's what you would call them. So has that been raised?
I don't think, to my knowledge, that's been raised. Was raised, okay. Okay, yeah, it was raised, but. I can't say that for long, but.
Because I've been asked, so, why did we do that?
Ms. Bland and I can speak to that. So last year, when we assessed the RIHIP plan, the RIHIP agreement, which is an incentive that we do offer for staff who are retiring, we did increase the number of days to offset the cost. I mean, there is a cost to the school division in providing health insurance to employees. We offer a certain number of substituting days, and in order to more evenly meet the cost of what that is, we increase the days.
And that's because our premium increases for the healthcare.
I want to
correct?
let Ms. Bland speak more specifically to the cost of the health insurance.
Yes, that's exactly right. The last year, those 35 days have gone the same, I guess, for as long as I can remember. I don't know how it originated. You probably have more of a history about the number of days. But just last year alone, our healthcare increases increased over by 10% or more to that. So for RIHIP employees, we cover the entire portion. So the employee portion, all of that's covered through the program.
Thank you.
I apologize for not being able to respond to that.
Mr. Roberts, any questions? Ms. Franklin, were you done? Okay. Dr. Roundtree?
Just thanks for all the work getting positions filled in our school system. Thanks.
Dr. Gitry?
Thank you. It's great to see all this data, and it's a relief to see improvement with those fill rates. So thank you for all your efforts and your department and the team that you're working with. And I'll just add that I'm looking forward to seeing what strategies you implement to recognize and appreciate our paraprofessionals. And when I saw the recommendations moving forward, I was like, that's a great idea. I can't wait to see what you come up with.
We're interested to reach out to other school divisions and find out what they're doing to recognize their subs, and maybe we could find a best practice out there that will help us and vet here in Montgomery County.
Yeah. And I should have said substitutes, not just paraprofessionals, but I'm sure it'll apply to both. So thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Parton?
Dr. Brewster, don't have any questions, but thank you so much for all the information and for showing us the graphs so we can kind of even visually see the differences of maybe what's doing really well and maybe where we need to work on some improvement, and you have some ideas for all of that. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
Thank you. Okay.
Ms. Bond, not to put you on the spot, but I know you went to a session that was specifically about kind of ways to appreciate substitute teachers. It might have been 2 or 3 years ago at VSBA. So maybe Ms. Bondle
would love to
able
hear
to
it,
remember. Yeah. I think I remember you talking about that, but I don't know. We can. Or maybe it was part of something else that you had attended, and I remember you talking about it, but we'll see.
I would think it might be the same ways that we appreciate our regular classroom teachers.
Yeah.
And
that's the start. Dr. Brewster, thank you so much for all of your hard work.
Thank you all.
Okay. The next item on our agenda are proposed revisions to the Student Code of Conduct. This is a first read. The administration provides a draft of updates to MCPS Policy 7-3.1, Code of Student Conduct, as suggested by the board. This is a first read. Jason Garrettson, Director of Student Services and Safety, is available for questions. This is just a first read and no action is expected. You can come on up. I don't know. Board members, anyone want to start with questions? Mr. Roberts, you might have some context you want to
Well,
share?
I do. What I'm seeing is some sweet updated policy. So everyone will be shocked. April 1st, 2004, I was 7. So I'm thankful that policy that is almost as old as I am is finally being readdressed. Going through all of it, this is a very simple update, clear, concise language that's easy to follow. A lot of work goes into doing it. When we have policies that are dated 22 years ago or 21 years ago, it gives the impression that people have been sitting on their hands. I like seeing the red lines through this. I like seeing that the updates and the changes are as clear as can be. We need to be doing more of this. We may not like everything that's changed or the updates in there, but it's something that, as a board, I think we really have got to start moving towards. It's updating our policies, getting things written down, and turning it over as much as we can of day-to-day operations to our superintendent, to the staff, to the people that we have spent so much time and effort hiring. Let them do the job we have hired them for, and this is a great first start. And the next comment is going to be, thanks, which is going to segue into something I'm going to say in unfinished business. But go ahead.
Ms. Franklin?
Okay. So I do have some concerns with the strike-throughs. One, I do believe that distribution can and does happen without the exchange of money or some other thing of value. So I have some concerns with that. Because way back in the day, I suggested that we add distribution to our policy because we were having children exchange contraband in our schools, and only one party was being punished for it. And I didn't believe that was fair, and I don't believe it's fair now. When you have two parties, whether planned or just because I have something and you want it too, that is still distribution, in my opinion. If I'm handing you a controlled substance or even a over-the-counter substance that could cause some kind of harm to another person, then that's distribution in my eyes. You know, maybe want to look at how we handle the steps of discipline when these things occur, when there is no money or something of value that is exchanged. I am open to looking at that and have a couple of suggestions around that. But I cannot agree with the language that's being stricken now is around distribution. Because I think it will just send the wrong message. And I also have concerns around one person being the sole designee or sole hearing officer. I expressed that many years ago when that change was made, and in my opinion led us to some decisions that weren't so great for our students. So talked with Dr. Gimple about this also, so he knows. I have issues with that. I think more heads are better than one. So those are my concerns with this first draft.
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. Ms. Bond?
I see both sides of the coin on this. I agree with Ms. Franklin. I think that maybe striking it completely isn't the answer if we can find a way to just change the verbiage in that to where I do agree. My beef when we see students with distribution is that if another student sets up the market for it and we're not seeing them, even though it's not a second offense, I struggle with that. So, but then again, looking at it and reading it, if that student didn't bring it and give it, then they wouldn't have it. So I see, like I said, both sides to it. So if we could just change that verbiage there just a little bit instead of just striking it completely. And then I just think as far as the designee, again, that's hard to put that decision on one person because that one person may have a different view on all situations. And sometimes, just like we do as a board, as we talk through things, it helps us to understand, yeah, I thought that, yeah, I mentioned that, but I see now maybe that was a decision that I didn't have correctly. So that's the thing I think about if you've got more than one person making that choice. No disrespect to anybody who would be making that choice, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Parton?
I'm kind of all over the place with this. I'm liking the red, like Mr. Roberts pointed out. I like the clarity because it kind of breaks it down and it's more of a simple type of it. There leaves kind of no, well, what if, because it's kind of laid out in more of plain language, so there's not any guessing per se. I will say, on the other side, and you would think I would know this, but I have to kind of agree with Ms. Franklin and Ms. Bond on the distribution part. My thoughts on that is the liability issue, because even though we aren't, as Ms. Franklin stated, if there was an exchange and the student technically wasn't going to be considered to be reprimanded for distribution, but let's say who they distributed it to, for lack of a better word, had a medical issue and something horrible happened. So who's getting sued in that? It's going to be, it's going to come back on us whether that student brought it themselves and used it or whether that student was given it by someone else. So I don't know if leaving it out completely needs to go there, because I don't think it's okay to let students think, hey, as long as we don't catch you using it, if you're giving it to somebody and you don't get caught, guess what? You don't get in trouble. So I do have an issue with that part too. As far as the hearing, I have to kind of agree with Ms. Bond on that as well. I do think there are special circumstances to where one hearing officer would be fine for certain things for the board. On the other hand, I think it kind of is circumstantial in a way, and maybe that should be a board decision on what the circumstance is. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but those would be my only two issues that I would have. But thank you for all this.
Dr. Gitry?
Okay, so I wonder, and I was just trying to look quickly, Mr. Roberts, if there is a definition of distribution that might help us navigate this, because one of the things that we have seen in discipline cases where a student is afraid, they're in the bathroom, they've got a vape and they hand it off, and by our definition, that's distribution. So is there, so what is there, I know, let me just finish. Don't let me finish. Is there a definition of distribution that speaks to intent or parameters of distribution so that we could keep distribution but clarify what constitutes distribution? But how does it?
Mr. Roberts, can you turn on your
define it
microphone?
as simply distributing it, or are there characteristics of the transaction that designate it distribution?
Distribution is a legal term, a specific legal term.
Right.
It is the exchange of a controlled substance for something of value. So two kids smoking a joint, that's not distribution, even though they're passing it back and forth. One kid saying, hide my vape, that's not distribution, because there's nothing being exchanged of value. The idea behind this distribution and why I specifically reference 18.2.248, because it specifically speaks to dealing drugs. That's the
Right.
chief concern, is somebody selling things to people. It is taking advantage of somebody who may have a predilection for substance abuse. There's a big difference to me between two kids no, I guess nobody smokes joints anymore. They're all vaping, even though they're covered in dung. It's because they go up back and pass that back and forth. That's two kids sharing it. That's not distribution. That isn't somebody trying to profit from someone else's addiction or someone else's problem. I'm going to quote, and I hate to do this.
I'm sure you do.
I'm going to quote a prosecutor who he and I have come to nearly fisticuffs over. Poison for profit. It's a phrase that I truly detest. However, it does distill what distribution is.
Now, I would agree in the context of economic activity that definition, and I'm not arguing against that definition, but in a school setting, there are other kinds of transactions, social transaction, that can be a motivating factor. So if you're just pure, like, I want to know how you translate it in a public school setting where a lot of these kids, they don't have a lot of money, and some of them might be selling for that purpose, but it also might be because they want friends. And so I'm wondering if there's a way of navigating this so that we're eliminating some of that distribution, but if there's wider distribution, if there's intent to distribute among, I don't know. I don't have another definition.
So there is actually substantial case law on what something of value is. Everybody's eyes are glazing over, and it borders on mildly inappropriate for me to begin describing some of those acts that can be seen as something of value. And you can read between the lines on there. There is a ton of case law on it. So, but saying, hey, well, first of all, who's going to say, hey, man, have a drag off my joint if you'll be my friend? And that's going to be the exchange of value. I know, I'm being flippant.
So, excuse me.
9:36, that was loud.
So what would your definition of a student getting into a prescription pill bottle and bringing and giving a student? Because I agree with the exchanging. That's why I said if we could word this a little different. And as I said, two kids and one coming and the other one not. Yeah, or handing off a vape, getting rid of it. Yeah, we don't need, and that's not what I call distribution. But if a student brings, let's say, 4 Lortabs and says, hey, this will make you feel better. There you go, there you go, there you go.
That's called an accommodation. It is a lesser included offense of 18.2-248.
Okay, but we need some explanation in this.
Because you're not getting anything in return.
I understand.
So that's called an accommodation. That's not a distribution.
But as a parent, would you not have a problem with another student bringing your child a Lortab? I personally would.
But how do you go from arguing very specific criminal code to, hey, guys, it's okay if you bring in Laura tabs and give them to your buddies? I'm not saying that.
I hear you, but
So-
as an attorney, though, what would be
I'm
a
also
good,
a parent.
as a parent and an attorney, speaking code, how would you see that written to be the most liable? There has to be a way to just not have one or the other, because as we have found in many years, there's gray in everything we do with student discipline. So how can we fit that gray in there?
Then you put in.
So we already have we already have possession earlier on, which is up to a 10-day suspension. I mean, if you bring it in, you give it to somebody, you still possessed it. So there's still a disciplinary action there that is quite severe.
Okay,
So could I?
so
Can I?
let me say this, because I said,
Okay.
I think I have what for me could help us with this. And that would be to look at our discipline matrix, so that if it is the simple, I handed it off to my friend to get rid of it, or over-the-counter drugs that may not be as, well, I'll take that back, that potentially may not be as harmful as prescription drugs or marijuana, because it is legal, and they still will do it. So that those students aren't necessarily coming to the board, but much like our hate speech policy, there's an educational piece that goes with this, so that students are required to go through the education, piece of it. They may receive some in-school suspension because of their actions, to help them understand it is not appropriate, and what could possibly happen with that. And it gets us, for me, it gets us past the distribution piece at a certain level. Now, if the education piece does not help them understand this is not acceptable and why, and they continue the behavior, then things escalate to the board. And that, from what we've been seeing, would cut down a lot in what is coming to the board. Just looking at our matrix and adjusting for what we're trying to do. And that is to help educate our students that what you're doing is harmful and there are consequences for your actions.
So I'm not going to start belaboring code section, even though I know Dr. Guidry loves doing that, and he and I could probably go back and forth with code for the rest of the evening. But what I want to really say is a lot of the motivation behind this is actually empowering our employees. I am 3 months and 17 days into the job, and I'm seeing a lot of micromanaging. Things like simple possession, I don't think we need to be getting involved in. I think we can turn that over to our superintendent, to Mr. Garrettson, and that's a big part of this. I don't mean to be getting into the weeds under what actually is what is distribution. My push for doing this is simply to build in some good policy that's clear, that gives our employees that we have taken an enormous amount of time to vet. Every one of us goes through those sheets every time we're here. Everybody does. We look at everybody who comes through here. We all take a vote on them. I don't want to be one of those people who says, yeah, we said you were good enough here, but we're still going to make you report to us on every single thing. I don't mean to put Mr. Garrettson on the spot, but I'm going to say I trust your judgment in 99.9% of these things. If you said, hey, board, we had 4 kids who brought in vapes this week, they each got 5 days in out of school suspension or whatever it may be, great. That doesn't need to come to us. It shouldn't. We're not micromanagers. And I'm sorry, I've been monopolizing.
Okay, so in good policy writing, that if there's a legal definition that you're relying on, you reference that legal definition in the policy so that if people want to, so the way to deal with this is after in exchange for something of value as defined in, and then you give the location of the definition. That, I mean, that's a standard practice. So that's one, if,
Right.
that's my recommendation.
But, well, hold on, let me see, because some of these codes have been referenced. I mean, I'm fine.
No, like right there, so that
No,
anybody
right
seeing the
under it,
policy.
yeah, just see, hyperlink it.
Because
whatever.
so we do that in portions of code. We'll reference it. Now, I'm not as concerned about that initial hearing because there is still if the recommendation is for a long-term suspension or expulsion, it still follows our policy and there is the right to an appeal. So it's not just one person who's going to be litigating this. If there is a stronger punishment, then there is due process involved, correct?
I would think so, yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think one of the things might be a little clearer is if where it says include long-term suspension, the reference to policy 732 should be at the end of the sentence, so it's clear that it covers both long-term suspension and expulsion, and you can say, not just see MCPS policy 732, but following the procedures in MCPS policy 732, because then there would be notification if out of that hearing there was a recommendation for long-term or expulsion, then immediately they're funneled into that process which has protections in it. Just a couple other small suggestions. Where it says serving as hearing officer, I'd recommend that we'd remove that phrase because in this capacity, the superintendent or designee is not acting as a hearing officer. They're reporting to the school board. So I would recommend just removing that. I personally would like to also see in the reporting, the IEP, or if they have an IEP or 504 in the reporting. That's just my recommendation. I'd like to see that because that's something of concern for us. So I think that there are ways that we can mitigate some of these risks with some tweaks rather than just, reinventing some of the wheel here and over elaborating.
And I'm not trying to shoulder this thing through, by the way. This is a first read. And don't take my enthusiasm as an unwillingness to move forward with rewriting policy or updating it. I'm happy to hear hack and slash, and it ain't going to hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to start updating.
I don't disagree with you at all. So I'll end there. If we did do those couple of things, would that allay your concerns both about distribution, or at least enough that we could get a consensus from the board, or majority of the board, if there was a definition for distribution?
For me, I think it's true, and I agree 100% that I think we get into the weeds way too much, which I have said many times. But I do also know that our administration, if they don't have clear ability to know what to work from because they're afraid of the board coming back on them, so that's where I do agree. We need clear definition of what we're expecting, so we don't have to get in the weeds. So to me, it's a fix-all. And I do agree with some of the recommendations. I just don't think we just need to strike and say, okay, this is it. Even though I agree exactly that, somebody handing off is not the issue. 2 kids doing, but I do think there can be some distribution that needs to be treated as a discipline issue. So if we can find a happy medium, but make sure it's clear and precise, because as a parent, if they've got a student that happens to fall into that category as a parent, I would want to know what I'm looking at exactly, as what policy says.
Yeah, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just reference code that's already been established. The other question I did have, and I almost forgot, is did you run, so I know that we're also removing medication, over-the-counter medication from the policy. Is that correct? Did I see that being?
It is struck on page 23.
Yeah.
That one sentence, yes, sir.
I would be curious to know if you, I looked any reference in code that may be behind this. I couldn't find anything readily. I don't know if there is. Did you run this by, or I'd be interested in knowing at our head nurse in that office if there were any concerns with removing this. I don't know if you talked to him.
I have not. One thing I would add there that could potentially maybe bear addition in here somewhere is that we do have a medication and an over-the-counter drug policy, a separate policy that talks about prescription and non-prescription medication use at school. It
Right.
probably deserves a reference in here somewhere.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm not opposed to removing because like we have seen cases of kids come before us where someone gave an aspirin to another kid and that ends in a discipline case. So I'd feel a little more comfortable with knowing just a little bit more information. So even if we reference that policy, or at least just like I said, I didn't find anything readily, but I don't know all of code on this. But I assume that there was some reason for it being in there.
And if I may just mention, I know the board may still be having discussion, and I'm taking lots of notes. We do reference on page 21, and this is not a change. When you look under alcohol and drugs, the statement possession or being under the influence of any of these substances may result in a recommendation for long-term suspension or expulsion. That's the starting point for any of these. And you do trust your superintendent and some of his designees to get involved and make some decisions for a first offense to say, hey, we are going to do something, still disciplinary, but it doesn't have to come before the board. And we do exercise that pretty regularly. And in my experience working with the board in your disciplinary hearings, it really does seem to come down to your belief about distribution, because distribution seems to be what brings it to the table in front of you. And as you guys, I think, have discussed very well tonight, finding that clear common definition that essentially triggers us to say, this is one for the board to see, and this is one we should try to handle ourselves. I think that is a tremendous improvement in the policy for numerous reasons. But you do already on page 21 for first offenders with possession or use, you already empower the superintendent to a high degree to make decisions, and he and previous superintendents have done so.
Problem that I've had with that is it was not consistent. And we ended up with a couple of civil rights complaints against us because of that. So I am very concerned about that. Now, I made some suggestions about how we can, because I still want to know on a consistent basis what we're going to be doing in these situations. Because I still believe distribution, whether it's exchange for money or something else, is distribution. And kids need to know, don't be giving stuff to other students. Just don't do it. And there are consequences for it, other than a slap on the hand, so to speak, but that they have to go through some kind of education about the impact of what they're doing. So until I see something in writing with the back and forth that has gone on tonight, I can't say that I can agree to anything.
Is there a way, the way we do it now, if you are caught for the first time, it's considered a first offense. Getting it and giving it, that's 2 offenses, correct? So that's usually what brings them before the board.
Typically what brings a student before the board is I bring it to school,
right,
and I share it with my good friend Rhonda,
That's
We're
right.
both on the hook for violation of a policy violation. She's typically being handled at the school level. I'm typically before the board for distribution. Even if, we were just best friends and share, or even if she heard I could get it and asked me to bring it, or even if I just tried to impress her with what I had and said, hey, look at this, you should try some too.
Right. And that's where I'm saying, we don't need to see that. But there also needs to be in my opinion, a deeper level of education and consequences when that occurs. Because it's just not you being caught with it, using it, or in possession of it by yourself. It's with someone else.
I was just wondering if there was a way we could distinguish the difference of a second offense and distribution. Because I've heard at multiple discipline hearings, the distribution part is what makes the second offense when they come to see us, because also if a student just has a second offense, they also come before us. So is there a way we can distinguish a difference between whatever we decide is distribution and however we make verbiage for disciplinary action opposed to a second time offense? Does that make any sense? Do you follow what I'm saying there? And if we could distinguish it between the two and have a disciplinary situation between the second offense different than what we would deem distribution, could that make a difference?
The board, of course, can recommend and write whatever you prefer. I think at the school level and at the division level, on page 21, based upon the conversation around what we're able to do with a first offense, I do feel like we would tend to always bring any subsequent offense to you. And then what's on page 22, whatever the definition for distribution is, we're going to bring that to the board as well. That's my understanding of our policy. Sometimes it could be, it is my second offense and also distribution, but either of those separately should bring me before the board with a recommendation for long-term suspension or expulsion.
Dr. Roundtree, do you have other comments or questions?
I had one question. Yeah. All in all, I think the policy is a good change. The last part about the superintendent, the superintendent or his designee, is that pertaining to the entirety of this policy, or is that just the alcohol and drugs portion of the policy?
I believe our intention was for alcohol and drugs. That's the section it falls under. And I think it was meant to be there so that the board would continue to be informed on these serious infractions, even if the superintendent or designee is addressing the disciplinary action, the board would still be aware and in the know in terms of number of offenses, location of offenses, and decisions being made by your staff.
Right. Yeah, and I think getting the IEP and 504 information in there would be good, and I like that. I think that call out could also be in some other places in policy for like physical altercations that occur that don't come before the board, but we should get an update on what are how many of these minor fights occur in schools, and what schools, what's the description of the violation, disciplinary action, IEP, 504, so forth. I think those are some good data points for us to track as a governing body. Not pertaining to this policy, sorry. Maybe that was slightly off topic.
Dr. Gimple?
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, sorry. Dr. Gimple, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm going to
Kinda
throw you a
moving.
little wrench, sorry. But I reached out to the VSBA and asked them to forward all of their policy revisions that they could come up with going back to 2013. I forwarded those to you, or Tosh just did. You're going to see a lot of policies that we don't even have in our policy manual. I mean, for all kinds of things. I mean, on the order of 100 different policies that are reviewable, and at some point we will work our way through. There is a policy in there about drugs in school that kind of gives some different definitions and outlines and some proposals. Maybe something to consider going forward. This is a first read. I forward you this. I will cut and paste that particular section for you and distribute it to each one of you.
What?
I know. Just to take a look at. And if you have suggestions on revision for that, please. You can get back to myself and Mr. Garrickson, and we will work that in for probably another presentation of this particular, along with the suggestions today, to move this forward. This is not unlike discussions I've heard on this exact topic in other divisions. It is always one of those that is a standalone, and it takes a lot of dialogue like you're doing. So I commend you all on weighing in and your interest in, obviously, in keeping our buildings and their kids safe. But just want to throw that out there.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I was just looking at something to address Ms. Bond's concern. So when I look at I was looking for second offense because that was an issue that you raised, and there's not an actual reference to a second offense. And so there's been an interpretation of the policy that distinguishes first from subsequent. Where I do find a reference is under alcohol and drugs. It just says the division superintendent, we're considering adding, or his or her designee, is authorized to determine that special circumstances exist and to implement an intervention plan that includes the following for the first offense of possession or being under the influence of any of these substances, including, and it starts with up to 10-day suspension. Am I correct in my quick glance here in search that we don't actually put in the policy that second offense is going to lead to a recommendation of long-term suspension or expulsion?
No, sir, it's not in there. One sentence above where I think you started, under alcohol and drugs, it says possession or being under the influence of any of these substances may result in a recommendation for long-term suspension or expulsion. We take that to mean, have historically taken that to mean that's the starting point. But if you're a first offender and based upon the superintendent's determination, it doesn't have to go before the board and can fall under a first offenders program.
Right, I guess.
You are correct. It never comes back and says.
Yeah,
for a
so
second
may
offense.
is not clear enough. Like if the intent of the policy is to distinguish between the two, and that it may in any circumstance lead to the recommendation, but that's different from the practice, which is that it will end up, because the way it's been happening for us is that if there's a second offense, it's coming to the board, and that's for a long-term suspension or expulsion. So I think that when you look at this before it comes back to us again, that needs to be clarified. I don't know if it's the will of the board that be the case. Is it I would be curious to know because you're going to need some direction on this. I don't know. I would be curious to know whether you think that a second offense shall lead to a recommendation or just may, because that's an important distinction.
if I'm remembering years ago when this came up, part of the first offense talk was enabling the principals of the building to be able to make that call. Mr. Garrettson, am I correct in thinking that?
You are correct, but it is ultimately the principal in conjunction with the superintendent or
Right.
designee.
Right, but it was an
Correct.
ability to be able to give and not get into the weeds, to give the building principal, because they were there, they heard the story, they knew the situation, and they were able to make that decision on that first offense, and we gave them some guidelines, and this is what we kind of looked. So I do think if we want to be clear, then we need to decide if it is a second offense that brings it forward, it needs to be documented. So that way, you know, even in the student code of conduct, it needs to be spelled out, because I think parents and students both alike, and staff members and principals and all of us also need to know exactly what we're looking for, what we're expecting. So we don't get into the weeds of what our administration needs to do.
Mr. Garrettson, do you feel like you have some pathway? I don't know, board, Dr. Gimple said before, you know, just also email things. Would it be worthwhile to have individual conversations with board members about things? Do we want a second draft?
I have
and
lots of
kind
notes.
Okay.
We have the conversation recorded, so I can go back and double check. I'm happy to work with my superintendent and look at the documents he shared with you. Typically, what we like to try to do, I think last time maybe we touched on a similar situation with policy, is we would probably like to try to leave you the red line edits just so you can see this draft. We would come in back behind with yellow highlights to show you changes in the next version. And I think we're working hard now to try to get these documents to you as quickly as possible so you have lots of time to review and have questions prepared, so that you're not having to take it in kind of in real time, and I'm not trying to bat down questions that maybe I haven't even thought of or haven't even heard that are on your mind. So I'm happy to try to do that if that pleases the board, and happy to work through my superintendent.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garrettson.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Are there any items of unfinished business? Go ahead, Dr. Guitry.
So I guess this is technically unfinished business because of yesterday's meeting. We've got a commitment from the Board of Supervisors to work with us on making sure there's equitable pay. I think it's incumbent upon us to start that process. One of the I was thinking about that a little bit today. One way of getting this started is to bring in a third party, an HR consultant that could bring, and I'm not saying we need to go this route, but to do an assessment on both sides to someone who's a little bit more neutral. I don't know if that's one way of doing it, but I would like to not waste any time, but to take the initiative on our side to start that process. So I don't know whether a committee gets formed or how do we do that, but I think that we should have a discussion of that. It doesn't have to be now, but I want to follow up on last night's meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Guitry. Mr. Roberts, I think you had mentioned you had an item of unfinished business.
Is it unfinished or is it new? Or can it be either?
Sometimes it's very gray.
All right, anyway. So back to these policies. We got to update them. That's way unfinished. I'm happy to go through them. I swear I will not bounce down the dais with comments. But I am happy to volunteer, help out, get these things moving forward, because they've been stagnating. And when Dr. Gimple said, we got 100, I had no idea, it didn't even occur to me to contact the VSBA, that we have policies that we probably never even thought of. It's time to incorporate them. I'm happy to do it. And here's the other thing, by the way. I don't have anybody taking issue with my thoughts or direction on some of these things, as long as you don't have a problem with moving forward and getting this policy brought up to date, get it written out so we can actually let our employees do their jobs. And that's really my driving force behind this whole thing. What time is it? 10:09? 10:10? I suppose I'm still willing to do that, but probably only for a few more minutes. But anyway, I will volunteer.
Dr. Gimple, do you have something to say?
Just Tasha's done some great work in organizing the policies that we do have. Has them listed by last revised. Some of them are very outdated. I think we could probably come up with a pretty good order of assimilation here as to what to bring forward first. Some of them won't need revision, right? Some of them are pretty simple policies. Maybe we start there, and I'll be glad to work with you, Mr. Roberts, and get that rolling in the right direction.
I wasn't 7 in 2004, by the way.
Yeah, you're not 29?
The other thing I want to keep in mind too is that it's not lost on me what our MEAC rep expressed there about the policies that impact our teachers or impact even students or our schools. I do think they need to have eyes on them too, and we need to collect some input. And we carry those back down, bring them right back up with those suggestions, and that's part of the revision process. I want to make sure that our teachers get eyes on the policies that they're going to have to, at some point, work and live by here. I think that's only fair, and same thing with our principals and our assistant principals and whoever else it impacts. So, I'll be glad to work with you, Mr. Roberts, and getting that going.
See you Friday.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Items of unfinished business? I actually have several items of unfinished business, and this isn't maybe technically because it more goes back to our retreat. There's several items that we left unfinished. Finishing the review of our norms and protocols, approving the evaluation instrument for the superintendent's annual review, and to reference a policy that we have, a board self-evaluation. So what I thought I would do is we have 3 months of meetings left, and it's going to go like that. And we have, agenda items that were referenced tonight, and I want to make sure that we're using our time efficiently and effectively and not trying to scramble for special meetings to deal with things that have very close deadlines. So I just wanted to mention that, and I'll have Tosh send something out to the board to kind of check your availability and preference of when you might like to have these conversations, just so we can make sure that we're using our time wisely. So I just wanted to give that little update. If there are any other questions or concerns or other items.
I have.
Go ahead.
So, one, just because VSBA has 100 policies that we don't have, doesn't mean that we have to have 100 more policies. they may not work in Montgomery County. Last night, it was discussed and has been discussed previously during our joint meetings about the presentations, and that not getting that information beforehand and for us to see, and also for community to see. It's a meeting. We always put our agendas out there ahead of time. And it's very frustrating for me. So I hope that this board will agree that if we're having a joint meeting, even if the other party believes folks need to just go back and find the information that they're going to present, which you don't know what it is because they haven't shared what it is yet until they present it, that we make that information available, those presentations available to our board and to the public when we announce our agendas. I think that's just a common sense thing to do and a practice that we do with every other meeting. Why is that one any different?
Thank you, Ms. Franklin. Dr. Gimple?
And I just want to say to the board members that had come in over the last 2 weeks to meet, to kind of view these presentations, provide feedback, help my staff to kind of shape them a little bit, ask your questions. Those of you who did that, I really appreciate your time. I know, you're here last night, you're here tonight, and then to ask you to come in over the next 2 weeks before the next board meeting to help us prepare those presentations in a way that the public can really get the most out of them. I just really appreciate that time. So thank you for doing that.
If we've completed unfinished business?
Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Roundtree, go ahead.
Along with the point of pay scale correlation between the school system and the Board of Supervisors, we also need to be cognizant as well that the county employees have a 30-year employment program where they receive their insurance benefits or continue receiving their insurance benefits after retirement for having served 30 years, which we do not have in our system. So that is another driving factor that has people that going to the Board of Supervisors county pay instead of our school system.
Thank you, Dr. Roundtree. All right. We'll move on to new business. Are there any items of new business?
I have one.
Yes.
In lieu of our conversation about nutrition and free lunches and anything that falls under that umbrella, and being a business that does not take credit cards, I completely understand the cost that's affiliated. And when I get ready to say what I want eventually us to have on the agenda for discussion, I mean in no way that I expect the district to absorb the cost. But over the weekend, my son happened to be sharing that he was putting money on my 4 grandchildren's lunch account. And he said, Mom, it cost me $15 each time I put money on their account. So we're concerned about people affording lunch, but yet we have these charges. And again, by no means am I saying that our county needs to be absorbing that cost. And I also understand that it costs to run cards. But is there a way we can have a discussion on an agenda about, is there any way we can find, if you've got 5 kids and you put money on each of their accounts, because I believe at one time it was like that. You have 1 fee affiliated opposed to 4 fees. So just a question, conversation, because that can run into money. If you can afford to put $100 at the beginning of the month on a tab, then that's great. But if you cannot, and you're doing it weekly, then that's $60. If you've got 4 children, that's $60 a month, extra charges. So, thank you.
I'd like to endorse that. I think the board should hear about it as a board.
Any other?
Yeah,
items?
I'll third that.
Sorry, Dr. Roundtree, what?
Oh yeah, sorry, but I'll third that as well. The cost to the parent putting $20 a week on their kid's lunch account is $12 a month on less than $100. So they're paying 12% in credit card fees there, or even it's not even just credit cards. It's however you transfer it on that system. That's getting up to actual credit card rates on interest.
Any other items of new business? Thank you, Dr. Roundtree. Are there any announcements?
Yeah, just quickly, kids don't take aspirin. Rye syndrome's a real thing.
I do have an announcement as well. I happened to go to Auburn. We are on announcements, correct? Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's on. I just wanted to do a shout out to Auburn Elementary. They had a Susicle last week, and it was adorable. And I want to thank everybody that was involved. I don't get to go to a lot of different functions because they're usually not after school when it comes to our arts programs. And that was after school, but she kept it short, and it was wonderful. And I was so proud of those students and so pleased with the program. I just had to give them a shout out. Thank you.
Any other announcements? I want to thank the Dialogue on Race for putting on a wonderful winter session. I'm sure that it was an incredible headache to have to reschedule it to the third time. I was only able to attend for a couple of hours in the morning, but I've only heard good things, and I just appreciate that group so much for all of the advocacy that they do for our public schools and for our students. I want to thank Dr. Gimple for letting me tag along on some school visits last week, and seems like a year ago, but it was only last week. It's been a busy time. It was great to visit BMS and BHS and Price's Fork and get tours there. And yeah, thank you all for participating in the joint meeting yesterday. We've got a lot of work to do, but I think we're headed in the right direction. So thank you all for that. Any other announcements?
Yep, so I'll just thank Dr. Gimple also for coming to the dialogue and being introduced to more citizens of Montgomery County and getting to see many more of them again, because he has truly been out there and so many people have already met him and been impressed. So that's a kudos to this board on our selection. And as he knows, as I've told all superintendents, we're good until you're not. So.
All right. So you can check board docs for our upcoming school board meetings. I adjourn this meeting at 10:22 p.m. Thank you, everyone.